Chapter 1060. What bad things did you do this time? Lin Fengyi had a deep understanding of this lass's destructive power, so he held back his laughter as he asked. Anyway, don't ask anymore. Let's run. Hua Xiaoxi turned around and saw that her good friend had already gotten off the carriage. She grabbed his sleeve and ran in the opposite direction without a care. Lin Fengyi wanted to say that he could take the carriage away, but after feeling her soft warmth on his fingertips, he swallowed his words and let her hold his hand. Xiao Ran had just gotten off the horse when he saw Hua Xiaoxi's fleeing figure. He was a bit puzzled. What's wrong with Miss Xiaoxi? Maybe she's shy. Chu Qingyan laughed softly, feeling that it was very amusing. Her voice seemed to be wrapped in sugar, causing Xiao Ran to involuntarily turn his eyes to look at her. The person in front of him had black hair and red clothes. She was as beautiful as a flower, giving him a different feeling from before. It was as if when he saw her, his heart would beat very fast. Chu Qingyan was about to step up the steps, but she felt a gaze staring at her. She raised her eyebrows and turned around, coincidentally meeting Xiao Ran's gaze. She blinked in confusion. Why are you looking at me like that? Is there a flower on my face? He really wanted to answer. In his eyes, she was like a blooming flower. No. Xiao Ran awkwardly looked away and stammered. Chu Qingyan shrugged. When she was about to step up the steps, she turned around and looked at Xiao Ran indifferently. I drank some wine just now, so I'm not feeling very well. If there's nothing else, you can go back first. I'll entertain you later. When Xiao Ran heard that she was not feeling well, his tone became a bit anxious. Do you want me to call an imperial physician to take a look at you? Chu Qingyan laughed softly. It's not a big matter. There's no need to make such a big fuss. Go back slowly. After saying that, she waved her hand at him. Xiao Ran thought that he was making a fuss over nothing. He nodded and watched her enter the residence before turning around to leave. On the way back, Xiao Ran's mind was still filled with the beautiful woman's fluttering clothes. Suddenly, he came to his senses. He finally realized what was different about Qingyan just now. It was the look in her eyes. Although she was smiling, there was a feeling that she understood the world and kept people 1,000 miles away. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He hoped that this was just an illusion and not real. Xining followed behind her mistress and asked hesitantly, Mistress, did you want to send the fourth prince away just now? Because she didn't feel that her mistress was feeling unwell all the way here. Not stupid. Chu Qingyan reached out to pinch her face and praised her with a smile. She felt that it felt good, so she pinched her face a few more times. Xining still wanted to ask something, but she was stunned by her master's abnormal behavior. Looking at her master's back, Xining pulled on Jasper and asked in a small voice, Jasper, did you notice that something is wrong with mistress? Jasper also said in a low voice, You're not alone. It seems like after drinking, mistress has become a different person. Whether it's speaking or doing things, there's an indescribable feeling. But it doesn't seem like she's drunk. Xining tried hard to think of a way to describe it. Jasper nodded in agreement. His Highness has a reason for not letting mistress drink. We should follow mistress closely. I'll go make a bowl of hangover soup. I'll leave the task of following mistress to you, Xining said. Jasper nodded and the two of them went to do their jobs. At this time, Chu Qingyan had already walked into the yard. Hualing happened to be in the yard. Seeing his princess consort walk over, he immediately bowed. Little princess consort, you're back. Where's his highness? Is he back? Chu Qingyan stood still and stroked her long hair, as she lazily replied. In the military camp, there's someone causing trouble. Mistress went to deal with it and hasn't come back yet. Hualing reported. All right, you can go. She waved her hand and walked towards Xiao Su's room. Hualing was about to leave when he stopped. He turned back to look at the back of the little princess consort, and slightly raised an eyebrow. There seemed to be a scent of alcohol on the little princess consort. He thought of how his master had told him to keep a close eye on the little princess consort, and not let her touch a single drop of alcohol. If they found out, they had to immediately report it to him. But looking at it now, even though the little princess consort had drunk alcohol, she was the same as usual. He thought that there shouldn't be anything wrong, so he didn't immediately send someone to report to his master. Thinking that he still had important matters to take care of, he immediately turned to leave. Chu Qingyan had just walked up the stairs when she saw Hong Yi and Lve coming out of the room. Greetings to Princess Consort. Hong Yi and Lve bowed in greeting. Chu Qingyan nodded and prepared to enter. At this time, Hong Yi stepped forward and blocked Chu Qingyan's path. She said with a serious expression, "Princess Consort, Lord hasn't come back yet. Are you going back to your room to rest first?" Chu Qingyan stood in place and raised an eyebrow. It turned out that this Yatu was challenging her. His Highness said that his things are my things, so his room is my room. I'm just sleeping in my own room. Why do you have so many questions? Chu Qingyan lazily replied with a half smile on her lips. With such a righteous reason and such a straightforward question, Hong Yi felt as if she couldn't hold on to her face any longer. But you and Lord haven't officially married yet. It's not right for you to casually enter Lord's room like this, and it will ruin your reputation. It's better for you to wait for Lord to come back before you find him. Even though she was trembling with anger right now, she relied on the ability to keep her composure that she had cultivated over the years to be able to smile and finish speaking at this time. Jasper stood to the side and couldn't keep listening. This Hong Yi was really looking for trouble. Her hands itched and she really wanted to throw this person out of the yard. Hong Yi, you're becoming more and more daring. The low and gentle words and the trace of pressure in the laziness seemed to wrap around everyone present, making them unable to move at all. The atmosphere instantly became cold. Lve, who was standing to the side without saying anything, could feel the coldness in the air. In this kind of sunny day, it actually made people want to rub their arms. Jasper stopped the impulse to move forward because she could feel the faint coldness coming from her master's body. She knew that she didn't need to do anything at this time. This servant doesn't dare. Hong Yi gritted her teeth and endured the waves of coldness that came from the bottom of her feet. Don't dare? Chu Qingyan gave her a mocking look. In this king's palace, is there anything you don't dare to do? Do you think that I can't see what you're doing behind my back? I just feel that you're a smart person. When I took your power, you should have repented and not become worse. If it wasn't for the fact that you've dedicated 10 years of your life to the king's palace, I wouldn't have let a piece of rat poop spoil the entire pot of porridge. Lve and Jasper were also like this. Hong Yi was frozen in place by her words. Chapter 1061. Chu Qingyan's words not only shocked Hong Yi, even Lve was shocked. It was like it was the first time she had seen this kind of Wang Fei. She didn't have her usual smiling and easy to talk to. She smiled gently, but her words were sharp and to the point. She was like a rose with thorns. Anyone who wanted to pick it would have to bear the sharp thorns. At this time, Chu Qingyan came close to Hong Yi and unexpectedly reached out to touch her face. Hong Yi was afraid of her status, and she didn't dare to move. Her fingers gently stroked, as if it was the intimacy between good friends. Only the person involved could feel the invisible coldness. Wang Fei you. Hong Yi couldn't speak coherently. Chu Qingyan moved to her ear and smiled. She said in a voice that both of them could hear. Hong Yi, I believe you know better than anyone else who leaked the news of His Highness leaving the capital. I have 1,000 ways to make your life worse than death. If you know what's good for you, know your place and don't cause any more trouble. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Otherwise, if you're not careful, you'll go down to drink tea with the King of Hell. This is the last warning. Be good and listen to me. After saying this, Chu Qingyan straightened her back and pulled her hand back. She took the handkerchief that Jasper handed to her and wiped her fingers. Then she walked into the room as if nothing had happened. After the door was closed, Lve saw that Hong Yi's face was pale and her body was trembling. She said in shock, Hong Yi, what's wrong? I am fine. Go to the warehouse yourself. I won't accompany you. Hong Yi turned to leave after saying this. She didn't want anyone to see her in such a sorry state. Lve looked at the fleeing figure and couldn't help but turn to look at the tightly shut door. Hong Yi mistakenly thought that this was a house cat that could be bullied by anyone, but she did not expect that the other party was actually a sleeping tiger. It was just that it usually did not pay attention to these small things and did not bother to argue with people. Now that she had awakened the tiger, How could the tiger tolerate such humiliation again and again? Wang Fei was a smart and kind person, but it didn't mean that she didn't have a temper. Therefore, Hong Yi was asking for trouble and reaping what she had sown. Lve shook her head. As a person, it was better to be clear about one's identity. A sparrow was a sparrow. Don't always try to put on colorful feathers to become a phoenix. Hong Yi was too arrogant and conceited. He hoped that she would not take the wrong path in the future. Having been maids for so many years, how could they not understand each other's nature? Lve gave a soft sigh and walked towards the warehouse alone. Chu Qingyan entered the room and looked around. Finally, she sat down on a chair and gently rubbed her head with a tired expression. Master, are you planning to make a move against Hong Yi? Jasper asked in a low voice. Just now, she had felt the killing intent from her master. It was very faint and quickly disappeared. Recently, there have been some things in the food that have been spread. I have been paying attention to Hong Yi and feel that she has been acting suspiciously recently. But she is very cunning and no one has been able to catch her. I was just using a trick to test her, but I didn't think that she would give herself away. Chu Qingyan supported her forehead with one hand and gave a faint smile. Do you need this subordinate to capture her and interrogate her? Jasper knew that the killing intent was purposely released by her master and asked. That would alert the enemy. I want to know who is behind her. Have Sui send people to keep an eye on her. Also, have him investigate Hong Yi's background before she entered the Fu. At the same time, find a chance to test if she has any martial arts. Her fingertips drew circles on her forehead. After thinking for a while, she slowly gave out orders. Jasper nodded. This subordinate understands. This subordinate will not let Hong Yi know that we are investigating her. You can leave. Don't let anyone disturb me. Chu Qingyan half closed her eyes and waved her hand at her. Jasper did not say anything else and immediately left. She closed the door and stood guard by the door to prevent anyone from disturbing her master's rest. When she was the only one left in the room, the clarity and sharpness in her eyes suddenly dissipated, and the stars in her eyes disappeared bit by bit. At the same time, she felt her head start to feel dizzy. Her entire body's strength was gradually draining away. It was as if the mental strength that she had been holding on the entire journey was disintegrating at this moment. The peach blossom wine's alcohol content was not high, but that was only for ordinary people. However, it was different for Chu Qingyan. Furthermore, that jug of wine had been poured down her throat in such a hurry that it had already accumulated in her body. Although it did not show much during the poetry gathering, along the way, teasing inside her sleeves, and fighting Hong Yi with her wits had stimulated the wine in her body. At this time, she came to Xiao Su's room. The air was filled with a familiar scent that made her feel at ease and relaxed. When the wine rushed up, her mind became muddled, and the wine in her body also evaporated. She stood up shakily from the chair. As if she was walking on clouds, she staggered towards the bed. The sky gradually darkened and lanterns began to be lit in the Fu. When night fell, there were already torches everywhere. When Xiao Su dismounted from his horse, it was already close to night. Princess Consort is back. He handed the reins to the servant. Huling greeted him outside the door and replied. She came back in the afternoon. Now she is in your room. But what? Xiao Su did not stop and walked directly to his courtyard. Since young Princess Consort came back, she has not left her room. Xining asked her to eat dinner, but she was sent away. Because he had just come back, he did not know the specific situation. He only heard Xining and the others talking about it, so he reported it truthfully. Xiao Su frowned slightly. Did something happen at the poetry gathering today? When the young Princess Consort came back, Huling asked the servant who followed her. He immediately replied. The matter is neither big nor small. It's just that Princess Huiyu and Jing Mingzhu, the daughter of the Minister of Rights, deliberately made things difficult for the Princess Consort. However, the Princess Consort easily resolved the matter. As for the rest, everything went smoothly. I heard that the young Princess Consort also got to know several young ladies from the officials' families, and got along quite well. Xiao Su listened as he walked. When he heard that Princess Huiyu made things difficult for the little fellow, his face became a little cold. Later, When he heard that the little fellow met new friends, the haze between his brows faded a little. Okay, this prince knows. Go and tell the kitchen to prepare dinner. Princess Consort and I will go to the hall together. At this time, Xiao had already walked to the courtyard. At a glance, he saw Jasper, who was guarding at the door. He turned his head and ordered Huling. Huling nodded and left. Xiao went to the door. Is Princess Consort still inside? Jasper nodded respectfully. Yes, Master has not come out yet. You can leave, Xiao said. Jasper nodded and left. Xiao pushed open the door. A lamp flickered and the whole room was a little dim. He glanced around the room and finally fixed his eyes on the bed. He walked towards the bed. Standing in front of the bed, he leaned over and reached out to lift the bed curtain. Suddenly, a slender arm reached out and grabbed his wrist, pulling him into the curtain. Chapter 1062. This sudden turn of events made Xiao instinctively want to make a move. However, when he saw that pair of clear eyes in the dim light, Xiao immediately stopped. This pause made him unable to stabilize himself. Coupled with the pull of her arm, his entire body fell towards her. In order not to hurt her, Xiao immediately changed his angle in midair. When he landed, his hands pressed on both sides of her body to support his body. His black hair fell and pressed against her black hair as if they were one. Why did you sneak attack me without saying anything? If I didn't see clearly that it was you and made a move on you, the consequences would be very serious. He had just returned from the military camp and taught that brat a lesson. The evil aura around him had not dissipated. If he had not reacted quickly, the little fellow would have been affected by him. In her words, there was a helpless and doting reprimand. Perhaps Xiao himself didn't notice, but when he saw her, the cold air around him slowly melted like dewdrops in the morning under the first rays of the morning sun. Chu Qingyan smiled innocently at him. The hand that was holding his wrist just now stuck to his arm and slowly moved up. Like a vine that was constantly growing, it wrapped around his arm bit by bit. She could feel that under his clothes, the tight and bursting muscles that possessed the charm of a man. Her fingers reluctantly circled around his shoulder, and at the same time, her other hand circled around his neck. When that soft and seemingly boneless arm wrapped around him, he felt that the skin that she had rubbed against was burning like a flame. But it was like a green grass, scratching at his heart and lungs in the water where the bottom of the water could be seen. At this moment, the two of them were facing each other, and were very close. As long as one of them bent down or raised his head, he would be able to touch the other's lips. Chu Qingyan did the same. Her voice was as charming as silk. I just wanted to give you a surprise. As soon as she finished speaking, she lifted her body and pressed her lips against his. He suddenly trembled. She mischievously stuck out her tongue and traced the beautiful shape of his lips. Xiao was teased by her, and his body started to heat up from the inside out. However, his rationality prevailed. He tilted his head slightly and avoided her lips. Chu Qingyan, who had failed to get what she wanted, licked her lips and glared at him unhappily. Xiao knew that she was unhappy, but he was more puzzled. How did the little girl become like this after going out for a while? However, because of the wine she drank today, she could no longer smell it. However, the wine accumulated in her body and became more and more fragrant, making her unable to control herself. She persevered, preparing to approach him again. Seeing this, Xiao wanted to get up, but ignored the vine-like hands wrapped around his neck. He had no choice but to stretch out his hand to support her. However, the bottom of the quilt was smooth, and his hand slipped. Coupled with the weight of the little fellow, he fell awkwardly onto the bed. As for the person who was hanging on his body, because of his slip, her whole body was stuck to his body like soft mud. So Big Ice Cube likes the position below. Her hands were on his shoulders, and her hair was like ink that fell on both sides of his shoulders. Her eyes were charming like silk, and the words she said made the person below her tense up. However, she was able to maintain an innocent and pure appearance, not feeling that she had said anything embarrassing. Xiao was lost in her charm. He couldn't help but raise his hand to caress her beautiful face. However, he stopped in mid-air and narrowed his eyes. You drank. The faint fragrance of wine lingered in her hair, as she sat on top of the table. Big Ice Cube, why is your nose so sharp? I thought I could hide it from you. She pouted and was a little annoyed. He had an answer to her unusual behavior tonight. Didn't I tell you not to drink? Why didn't you listen? Xiao suddenly felt a bit of a headache. Every time she touched wine, her temperament would change, and she would be completely different from her usual self. I didn't do it on purpose. They all said that the degree wasn't high and that it was like drinking fruit tea, so I drank it. Moreover, look, I'm not drunk yet, right? What are you worried about? She lowered her head and looked at the person below. She blinked and suddenly naughtily reached out to take off his mask. When she saw his handsome face, she couldn't help hugging him and rubbing her face against his neck. Big Ice Cube, you're really good looking, even better than me. I want to hide you so that you can only belong to me. She acted coquettishly. This coquettish voice and strong dependence made Xiao's heart melt into a pool of water. Fool, even if you don't hide, I'm still yours. Our Ian, in my eyes, is the most beautiful. He gave a low laugh and reached out to rub her head. She pouted and heavily kissed him on the cheek, smiling happily. It's been stamped. From now on you're mine. Fool. Xiao was helpless against her childish actions, but after she laid down, rubbed against him and kissed him, he felt the emotions that he had been suppressing fluctuate. His eyes slightly darkened. He felt that if he didn't leave this place, he would do something he didn't expect. Normally when he rubbed, hugged, and kissed her, he could still control the extent. After all, the little fellow was still sober, but the little fellow in front of him was drunk. He didn't dare guarantee that he would be unable to control his passion for her. With a thought, he wanted to get up and increase the distance between the two of them. But the person on top of him seemed to have sensed his thoughts and threw herself at him, pressing down on him with her entire body weight. What are you doing? The questioning voice in her seductive voice didn't have any strength at all. Instead, it made the listener's body go soft. I'll have someone prepare a hangover soup for you. The little fellow's weight was nothing to him, but with her serious expression, he also treated it seriously. No, you can't move. She approached him, the tip of her nose touching his as she fiercely threatened. But this threat to him was like a child throwing a tantrum. It was just a bluff, he didn't put it in his eyes at all. You're not allowed to laugh, be serious. She saw the smile on his face. It was so beautiful that she was about to be lost in his smile. But she quickly came back to her senses and gave a soft snort. Xiao was tactful. He knew that he could only go along with her at this time. Otherwise he didn't know what this little fellow would do. But at this time, he suddenly thought of an extremely important matter. Where did you drink? The person who had the upper hand just now heard the Big Ice Cube's serious question. His imposing manner immediately dropped a bit as he honestly replied, at the poetry gathering. His face immediately sank. He was very sure that in these past few years, the number of times this little fellow had drunk could be counted on one hand. The drunken state was right in front of him. He liked this little fellow's coquettish appearance, but he wouldn't allow others to see this little fellow. He would feel like his treasure was being peeped at by others. Chapter 1063. The atmosphere suddenly froze, and the temperature plummeted. Chu Qingyan felt her entire body shiver. No matter how muddle-headed she was when she was drunk, she could still feel the emotions of the people below. She held his face with both hands, blinked her eyes and asked softly, Big Ice Cube, are you angry? Ian, what did you do after you drank at the poetry gathering? He looked at her seriously. Chu Qingyan shook her head. I finished the whole pot of wine. Xiao only drank a few cups, and then we came back, but what? His voice tightened. She was oblivious to the change in him as she was immersed in what happened in the afternoon. She smiled proudly. I flirted with Xiao in the car and lied to her that I would arrange her room in the same place as official Lin's. She was so scared that she almost cried. Hee Big Ice Cube, you didn't see how Xiao looked at that time. She looked like a cooked prawn, very, very red. She always teases you. What you did was exactly what I wanted. Xiao did not feel that there was anything wrong with her teasing her friend. Instead, he admired it. If Lin Fengyi knew that he was such a good friend, he would probably vomit blood. However, at this moment, in his eyes, The little fellow in front of him had rosy skin. The silver-red clothes on her body were like a red prawn shell wrapped around her body, making him want to eat to his heart's content. Oh right, we also met Xiao Ran on the way back. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt the hand holding her waist tighten. She puffed up her cheeks. Big Ice Cube, what's wrong with you? Did you do anything inappropriate to Xiao Ran? Like how you're treating me now? He couldn't be blamed for having such thoughts. It was just that after the little fellow got drunk, she was really too abnormal. He was afraid that if he wasn't by her side, she would do something abnormal. No matter who it was, she would pounce on them. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she suddenly buried her head in his shoulder, her shoulders twitching. Before Xiao Su could understand the meaning of her actions, he heard her uncontrollable laughter. Big Ice Cube, are you jealous? She looked up and laughed happily, her eyes sparkling. Xiao Su couldn't help but raise his head and bite her lips as punishment. He was worried, but she was laughing without a care in the world. Chu Qingyan felt a sharp pain on her lips as she moaned softly. Not to be outdone, she wanted to kiss him on the lips. Her entire body was moving around on top of him, causing a small flame to ignite in his body. Xiao Su felt that he could not go on like this. He steeled his heart and avoided her lips. That pink and moist lips brushed past the corner of his mouth and slid to his ear. He trembled slightly and instantly got up, wanting to leave. In fact, he should be happy for such a passionate person, but he sighed because every time this little fellow woke up, she would not remember anything. If he really went along with her wishes when she was drunk, if she regretted it when she woke up, then he would not be able to bear it. Rather than that, he might as well not respond to her passion. When the time came, when it was justified, then he would eat her up. Wouldn't that be better? However, the little fellow was even more clingy than he thought. Her hands were tightly wrapped around his neck. When he got up, her whole body followed him like a sloth, hanging on his body. She smiled proudly. You want to get rid of me? No way. I want to rely on you for the rest of my life. Xiao Su, who was suffering from the torture of ice and fire in his body, couldn't help but laugh when he heard her childish words. You can rely on me for a lifetime, 2 lifetimes, or even forever. But now, before you wake up, I won't do anything to you. So be good, be obedient, lie on the bed, and don't move around. When she heard this, she felt a little indignant. Who said I'm not awake? I'm awake. I know who I am, and I know who you are. Let me tell you, although I'm very happy that you were jealous just now, I want to explain it to you. Xiao Su looked at her speak. At this moment, he could only follow her wishes and listen to her. He would find another opportunity to make her obediently lie on the bed. She curled her lips, then said in all seriousness, although I can't control my actions when I drink, as if something in my body has been released, my thoughts are very clear. I know that I will only have this kind of feeling when I'm facing you. If it's in front of others, I, Chu Qingyan, will still be the same. I won't pounce on a man whenever I see one. She paused, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. She leaned forward and kissed him, then said in a playful and serious tone, the only person I've always been thinking of, the only person I want to pounce on, is you. I don't care about anyone else at all. The only person I've always been thinking of, the only person I want to pounce on, is you. The only person I want to pounce on is you. Only you. This sentence kept echoing in Xiao Su's ears. He was a little surprised. You mean, you're only like this towards me? Of course, my eyes can only accommodate you. How can I have the mood to look at anyone else? She harumphed. Big Ice Cube was too stupid to actually let his imagination run wild. After she finished harumphing, a sense of satisfaction surged in her heart. This Big Ice Cube was really cute. Then I'm relieved. But don't drink recklessly in the future. You're making people worried. He raised his hand and stroked her long hair. The soft strands of hair twined around his fingertips, making him feel at peace. Today, she was much better than the past few times. At least she could talk to him soberly. It was different from the past few times when she clung on to him, so he could calm down and talk to her. Big Ice Cube, I like it when you're jealous. It's different from usual. It's not so abstinent and cold, as if there's a spark in the world. She bit her finger and looked at him. Silly. He chuckled lightly. In front of him was the woman he had always been thinking of and doting on in his heart. As long as she looked at him, moved, or approached him, he would instantly lose his mind and reveal his true self. And he was willing to reveal his true self to her. Because she was his deep love. You always say that I'm silly, but even if I'm silly, the goods are already sold and there's no return. It's too late for you to regret it. But do you want to open the box and check it now? She wriggled her body and sat on his body. Her hands turned into vines again and wrapped around his body. Iron. Xiao Su's body trembled. The waves in his body that he had deliberately ignored earlier began to become restless because of her proximity. Big Ice Cube, don't worry. I only like you. Then shouldn't we get down to business? She put her hands on his shoulders and moved closer to his eyes. She breathed out and said with a charming look, "So can you take off your clothes now?" Chapter 1064. The little fellow's words made Xiao Su stunned on the spot. This was undoubtedly a sudden clap of thunder. Even if it was Xiao Su who commanded thousands of troops, he was still unable to regain his senses from those words. Ian, you can't. He carried her up and prepared to place her on the bed to increase the distance between the two of them. But this little fellow was like a soft and boneless octopus, tightly wrapped around him, and he couldn't get her off. If he used too much strength, he was afraid that he would hurt her. Xiao Su couldn't bear to do so. In the end, he still thought of trying to persuade her. Ian, be good and listen to me. Let go of me first and have a good sleep. When you're awake, I'll do whatever you want to do. How about that? When Chu Qingyan heard that, she snorted lightly. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? That I'll fall for your trick so easily? Xiao Su was speechless at this moment. I don't care, no matter what, I'm going to do you today. Take off all your clothes. Hurry. Otherwise I'll do it myself. She said in a domineering manner, and in the end, she suddenly blinked her eyes and leaned close to him. She breathed into his ear. I know you actually want me very much too. It was as if a warm current had rushed into his brain and exploded in his brain, causing him to forget to think for a moment. And a certain someone had already started to move her hands all over him. Her soft hands were placed on his waist, and she was trying to undo his belt. Suddenly, a pair of large hands wrapped around her tightly. She raised her eyes and stared at him with some dissatisfaction. A suppressed voice rang in her ear. Ian, have you thought it through? The low and hoarse voice poured out warmth, and the temperature around the two of them suddenly rose. Xiao Su was as indifferent as usual, but under that calm appearance, the blood in his body was boiling, as if it was going to spurt out very soon. Chu Qingyan felt the air suddenly thin. The person in front of her was different from the past. He was like a hibernating leopard, waiting for the right moment to strike. Her heart suddenly thumped, but she quickly suppressed that feeling. Wasn't the person in front of her the one she wanted? What was there to hesitate about? She nodded heavily and reached out to hold his face with both hands. She said seriously and shyly, I've always known it. Big Ice Cube, I love you. This was like the last straw that broke Xiao Su's back. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she felt a strong aura emanating from his body that could not be ignored. It gradually enveloped the two of them, making her involuntarily want to retreat, but she stubbornly looked at him with a determined gaze. However, in the dim room, as night fell, the light was swallowed up bit by bit. She could only see that his eyes were getting brighter and brighter, as if they were about to overshadow the candlelight. The him in front of her seemed to be swallowed up by the darkness, leaving only that pair of enchanting eyes. It made people unable to help but follow the vortex in his eyes, desperately wanting to step in, and then fall into oblivion, unwilling to wake up. Just as she was about to lose herself in his silent charm, suddenly, the sky and earth turned. When her back touched the soft bed and the cold silk brocade was pressed against her neck, she finally reacted. When she looked up, the person she was tightly hugging was already above her. His eyes were as bright as the stars, looking down at her from above. She was immediately captivated as she stared at him in a daze. Knock knock. At this time, the door was knocked without warning. Chu Qingyan came back to her senses and bit her lip. Who was such a killjoy? She turned her head and only saw the fluttering bed curtains and the vague image of the door. Master, the kitchen has already prepared the meal. Do you and the little princess want to eat? It was Huoling's voice. Xiao Su's gaze fell on her face, but he did not even raise his head. No need. Seal off the entire courtyard. Don't let anyone come in and disturb me. His voice was as calm as usual. Yes. Huoling did not think much and immediately went to do it. The sound of footsteps gradually faded away until it could no longer be heard. But when the footsteps were far away, Chu Qingyan found that her heart was slowly starting to beat faster. Because the person who had just finished speaking was approaching her bit by bit. Those astonishingly bright eyes were already right in front of her. Ayan, even if you regret it now, it's already too late, he said in a hoarse voice. His fingers climbed up her cheeks and gently pushed aside the strands of hair that had fallen on her cheeks. His 5 fingers touched her hair. She looked at him with a smile. I never regret anything, otherwise I would never do it. Good. As his voice fell, his fingertips moved and the hairpin inserted into her hair fell into his hand. Her gaze fell on his hand. The golden hairpin stopped in his hand, making his knuckles look slender and smooth. It was very beautiful. She ridiculed in her heart. How could a man's fingers be so beautiful? How could a woman like her live? When she was absent-minded, she felt a cold sensation on her lips. When she came back to her senses, she saw that he had unknowingly touched her lips. His eyes were so dark that she could not see the bottom. The person in front of her had black hair scattered behind his head. His skin was white and his lips were red. Black, red, and white. These 3 extreme colors overlapped in front of his eyes, like a beautiful painting. Ayan, he whispered in her ear. Unwoo, she subconsciously responded, but her voice was blocked. The fiery kiss seemed to want to suck all the air out of her lungs. She was forced to endure his passion. In the end, she could not help but wrap her arms around his neck and respond. This was like adding fuel to a fire. With a rip sound, her belt was already undone by him. When he pulled it out, it rubbed against the quilt and finally floated down to the bed. The outer garment was no longer restrained. As the two rubbed against each other, it quickly fell apart. It revealed the white inner garment inside. Under the dim light, his eyes were filled with her delicate and beautiful face. His hand caressed her eyes, nose bridge, red lips, white neck, and finally into her inner garment. She could not help but shrink her body. A layer of sparkling tears welled up in her eyes. Her lips could not help but let out a moan. Her low moan made his body instantly tense. His attacks became more and more fierce. Under his lips, she softened into a puddle of water, allowing him to do as he pleased. In her bright and innocent eyes, Xiao was afraid that he could not control his strength. His heart moved. The ice silk brocade was lifted and covered the two young bodies. It also covered the overlapping and lingering feelings that surged like a tide. Under the dim yellow light, one could vaguely see pieces of clothing lying on the ground, stacked together in the most ambiguous posture. Through the trembling bed curtains, the scene inside could not be seen clearly. Only the towering brocade quilt could be seen, constantly moving up and down, as well as the low moans and light gasps that made one's ears turn red. There's still a long time. I still have a lifetime to slowly grind with you. Chapter 1065. Summer nights were shorter than other seasons. The morning sun rose early, but set late. This was the so-called long days and short nights. However, spring nights were usually short. However, when a certain person woke up, he turned his head in a refreshed manner. His arm was a bit numb from the little fellow's pillow, but he did not plan on moving it away. He reached out and pulled her closer. At this time, Chu Qingyan was still in dreamland. When she felt the familiar scent, she automatically leaned against him. She reached out her hands to hug his waist and obediently buried her head in his chest. The close contact of their bodies made Xiao's body slightly stiffen. The early morning rush made him feel a bit of pain. He closed his eyes and forcefully suppressed the restlessness in his body. After calming down a bit, he opened his eyes and turned to face the person in his arms. He lowered his head and placed a light kiss on her forehead. He sighed in his heart. She really was a torturous little fellow. Thinking of the scene from last night, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. They had tossed around until late last night. He closed his eyes again, and prepared to hug the person in his arms to catch up on sleep. There was no morning court today. He had an entire day to face the various scenes after the little fellow woke up. He curled his lips. He was looking forward to what kind of performance the little fellow would have when she woke up. But not long after, there was a knock on the door. "Master, His Majesty has an order for you to enter the palace." Turin was standing outside the door. These hidden guards all knew that the little princess had spent the night in their master's room. Originally, Huiling had wanted to report this news, but this brat had thrown the news to him. He said that he didn't want to cause trouble at this time, and ran away. At this time, Turin braced himself and knocked on the door to report. Xiao suddenly opened his eyes. Ben Wang understands. He had to make a trip to the palace. Although he was reluctant, he still let go of the person in his arms and prepared to sit up. Chu Qingyan felt that he wanted to leave. She couldn't help but tighten her arms and hang on to him like a sloth. If it was a normal day, she would have already woken up with this little bit of movement. However, perhaps because the alcohol had not completely subsided, she was still acting like a little girl. Moreover, the person beside her was the person she trusted the most, so she lazed in bed and refused to wake up. Xiao hurriedly reached out to support her body, afraid that she would lose her balance and fall down. His movement was what she wanted, and she hummed in satisfaction. Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but in the end, he still patiently coaxed, "I need to go to the palace. Be good and wait for me to come back." As soon as he finished speaking, he felt her hand loosen, but she was still in a state of deep sleep. He curled his lips and put her down. He got up and put on his clothes. After putting on his mask and getting dressed properly, he turned around and wrapped her in a brocade blanket. Then he carried her, pushed open the window and flew out. Using his qinggong, he sent her into her room. At this time, Xining, who was in the room, saw His Royal Highness flying in through the window. Although she was shocked, she immediately walked over. "Your Highness." Xiao put her down on the bed and turned around to ask, "Does everyone in the courtyard know that Ian came back last night?" Last night, this servant told the people in the courtyard that Master was not feeling well, and came back early to rest before you came back. If there is nothing important this morning, don't disturb her. No one should be suspicious. Last night, she and Jasper had been scared out of their wits. His Highness suddenly sent someone to tell them to make an illusion, and pretend that Master was resting in her room. Although the two of them were inexperienced maidservants, they spent their days with women, and were influenced by what they saw and heard. They knew what was going on, and were quite happy for their master. After all, she and His Highness had already experienced so many things. It was normal for them to have a positive result. Xining and Jasper had been by her side for so long that their minds were no longer pedantic. When it came to matters between men and women, success came naturally. However, gossip was a fearful thing. Although Master and His Highness were engaged and had lived together for so many years, and were already very close, they were still not officially married. They were afraid that bad rumors would spread, so the two of them immediately made a tight arrangement, and put on a show to make everyone think that Master was staying in her own courtyard, and did not go anywhere. Xiao nodded, "Very good. Go down and prepare to eat first. When Ian wakes up, we can eat at any time." Xining acknowledged and immediately left the room. At this time, Xiao reached out to caress the little fellow on the bed, who only had her head exposed. His gaze fell on her captivating red lips. They were like the first rays of the morning sun, the first dew of a jasper flower. It was so moving that he couldn't help but want to pluck them. And he did just that. Bending his body closer to her lips, he sucked on them and hooked the little fellow inside. Bit by bit, he devoured the air in her body. Seeing that she had no choice but to take deep breaths, he opened the entire castle to him, allowing him to take as much as he wanted. After her face and ears were flushed red, he finally left her lips. However, his forehead was pressed against hers, and their breaths were tightly intertwined. Looking at her slightly dissatisfied frown, he lowered his head and smiled. Dissatisfaction was the right thing to do. This should be her punishment for tormenting him for the entire night. Time waits for no one. He reached out and gently pinched her face. In a doting voice that he didn't even realize, he said, "Be good and wait for me to come back." After saying that, he withdrew his hand and left through the window again. Not long after Xiao Su left, the person on the bed felt a little warm. She turned over but felt a slight numbness on her skin. Her long eyelashes fluttered and slowly opened. She stretched lazily on the bed. The sunlight shone in through the window, and her arm happened to be facing the light. It was white with a hint of red and red with a hint of light. She opened her hazy eyes and couldn't help but smile. She felt that she had slept very comfortably last night. Wait a minute. The clothes on her body looked familiar, but it definitely wasn't hers. Wait a minute. Why were there so many marks on her arm that was exposed to the air when the sleeves slid down? Wait a minute. This blanket wasn't hers. Wait a minute. Chu Qingyan was still in the middle of stretching, but she was completely stunned. She immediately turned over and sat up. Her loose clothes loosened because of her large movements, revealing her shoulders that were full of red spots, as well as the red marks on her thighs that were not covered. Although she had never experienced sex before, with such obvious marks and the soreness all over her body, she already had a guess in her heart. She quickly tugged at her belt, but she wasn't wearing anything inside. She looked like she was wearing a loose bathrobe. But why did this bathrobe look so familiar? It looked like Big Ice's. Wait a minute. This blanket was also from his room. Her mind was about to explode. So last night, she and Big Ice, what the hell was going on? Why was she in her room? Where was Big Ice? Did he run away after eating? Chapter 1066. Questions came one after another. Her body was numb and sore from her large movements. She leaned against the bed, her mind blank. She woke up with a hangover and her mental strength was not very good. She rubbed her forehead and sat up. She bit her lip, embarrassed and gritting her teeth. She did not reject what happened before marriage, but where was he? Why wasn't he in front of her? This was too much. Could it be that he was really going to wipe his hands clean, and then run away as quickly as possible? The more she thought about it, the more wronged she felt. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Xining pushed the door open and entered, holding a light bowl of porridge and vegetables in her hands. Seeing that her master had woken up, Xining smiled and said, "Good morning, master." Chu Qingyan turned and waved at her. "Xining, come here." Xining put down the plate and walked over, but when she saw the ambiguous red marks under the loose male version of the shirt, she immediately blushed and lowered her eyes. "Master, what's the matter?" Chu Qingyan also noticed Xining's expression. Looking down at the pink skin exposed by the wide collar, she silently cursed the big ice cube in her heart as she pulled up the collar. Looking at the situation, Xining also knew something, otherwise she would not be surprised to see the abnormality on her body. Chu Qingyan blushed, then coughed softly. "I want to ask you something, tell me what you know. What happened after I drank yesterday?" It was not that she could not remember, but as long as she thought about it, her head would become dizzy. Wine was really not a good thing. Her head was still hurting. "After you drank almost all the wine on the table, the poetry gathering was almost over, so we came back. Young Master Hua sent you to the gate and left with Lord Lin," Xining replied. "And then? What did I do?" Chu Qingyan coughed softly and asked unnaturally. "As soon as you came back, you were looking for His Highness. However, His Highness had not returned yet, so you went to His Highness's room. However, before you entered the room, Hong Yi offended you, so you taught her a lesson. After that, you entered the room." At this point, Xining seemed to have thought of something. She said, "Oh, by the way, His Highness also sent you back, but you asked him to go back first." Chu Qingyan rubbed her temples, trying to dispel the dizziness she was feeling. "What happened after that? When did His Highness come back? And then, wasn't I in his room? Why are you in your own room?" She was sure that Xining knew what happened last night, so she didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. Anyway, Xining had been influenced by her. She had trained her to be more open-minded than ordinary women in ancient times. Thinking of this, she suddenly felt a little sorry for Jin Xian. Cough cough. Forget it. For him, this was also a blessing in the future. Xining carefully glanced at her master. She saw that other than her master's embarrassed expression, there was also an indescribable excitement. Although she didn't know what her master was thinking, she thought about it and reported truthfully. Last night, you stayed in His Highness's room to wait for him to come back. You didn't let us in to serve you. Jasper was guarding outside. His Highness came back when the sun set. And then? Chu Qingyan's heart thumped. She thought that what happened next was what she wanted to know. Xining swallowed and lowered her head even more. Then His Highness went into his room and never came out. That's not right. At night, he ordered us servants to pretend that you were in your own courtyard, so that no one would know that you spent the night in his room. Chu Qingyan leaned against the bed wall and gritted her teeth. So it was like that. After this stinky fellow finished eating, he still refused to admit it. But with the marks all over his body, how could he hide it? Stinky fellow, stinky fellow, stinky fellow. She kicked the blanket and rolled around on the bed. Xining's words were too difficult for her. She didn't dare to look at her master, but reason prevailed. Seeing her master like this, it was obvious that she didn't know what happened last night. She suddenly had some doubts. For her master's sake, she gathered her courage and asked, "Master, why didn't His Highness let anyone know that you spent the night in his room?" Chu Qingyan stopped rolling around. She bit the blanket and looked at her with watery eyes. "Because I, your master, haven't married him yet. It's not proper to marry him." Woo-woo. Stinky fellow, he ran away after eating. Xining suddenly understood and clapped her hands. So His Highness did it to protect master's reputation. This servant understands now. Understand my ass. She didn't care about her reputation at all. It was just a topic for other people to talk about. She just wanted to know what this stinky fellow's attitude was. Where's His Highness? Let him come over. This lady wants to see him, she said through gritted teeth. Want her to be embarrassed like those girls who had been eaten? Humph, no way. Even if she couldn't remember what happened last night, since the big ice cube had eaten her, she couldn't run away. It wasn't like she didn't want to. Someone came from the palace this morning to ask His Highness to enter the palace. So early in the morning, His Highness sent you back and left the residence. Xining quickly replied. Entered the palace? Chu Qingyan's heart calmed down a little. It seemed like the big ice cube didn't want to see anyone on purpose. Master, do you want to eat something first? Xining saw that her expression had calmed down a lot and asked. She didn't know if it was because of the alcohol or the exercise they did last night, but she didn't have any strength and didn't feel hungry. She waved her hand. No need, I want to continue sleeping. Don't let anyone disturb me. Although Xining wanted to persuade her to eat something, she saw her tired face and closed her mouth. She nodded and took the food away. When the door was closed again, Chu Qingyan laid down on the blankets. The loose clothes were stuck to her skin and were cold to the touch. Because the big ice cube's clothes were mostly made of ice silk, it was very comfortable. Not many people knew about this last night, so it seemed like the big ice cube had helped her change into these clothes. She guessed that he had even taken care of her bath. Thinking of this, her body heated up and she lightly patted her face. What are you thinking about? I'll settle the score with him when I come back. Settle what score? He wasn't in front of her when he woke up after eating, but he did it for official business, so she couldn't blame him. But she couldn't just let it go like this. She wanted to settle the score. There was no need to ask so many questions. Anyway, she wanted to be willful. His exposed skin was covered in red marks, and there was not a single part of his body that was unscathed. It was enough to see how intense and crazy it was last night. So even after being eaten clean, she was not allowed to make a scene? After she made up her mind, she started to roll around on the bed. It was so embarrassing. But why couldn't she remember anything at all? Don't think about it, don't think about it. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. I want to sleep. We'll talk about it when he wakes up. Chapter 1067. Very quickly, Chu Qingyan's energy was not good, and she was about to fall asleep. At this time, Xiao Ran, who had been thinking about Chu Qingyan, came to the Wang Fu. Where's Qingyan? I came to see her. Xiao Ran knew that his imperial brother had entered the palace early in the morning, so he asked straightforwardly. The one in charge of receiving them was Steward White Tiger. Because he had experienced the little Wang Fei's methods and boldness, White Tiger was afraid of her. When he heard Xiao Ran's inquiry, he immediately sent people to the backyard to find her. But the person behind the servants was not the Chu Qingyan that Xiao Ran was anxiously waiting for, but Jasper. Fourth Highness, my master's body is not well today, so you can play in the Wang Fu. If there's anything, just tell Steward Bai and he will take care of it. Jasper stood in front of Xiao Ran and said respectfully. Xiao Ran was disappointed that he couldn't see Qingyan, but thinking that she was not well he was worried. Is it because she drank too much wine yesterday? Jasper recalled her master's vigorous refusal and couldn't help lowering her eyes. Yes, usually His Highness doesn't let Master drink, so Master didn't control herself yesterday and drank too much. She is still resting now. Since it's like this, then I won't disturb her and let her rest. That's right, I brought this box of pastries from the palace. Let her try it. If she likes it, I'll bring it back for her next time. Saying this, Xiao Ran took the box from the alley rain behind him and handed it to Jasper. Jasper took it with both hands and expressed her thanks. Since he couldn't see her, there was nothing to do. Xiao Ran left with his people. Jasper Gunyang, is Wang Fei well? Do you need a doctor to come and see her? When Bai Yu turned to leave, Steward Bai on the side stopped her. It's nothing serious, she'll be fine after resting for a while. That's good. If there's anything, you can call this old servant at any time. Housekeeper Bai was extremely kind. Jasper nodded politely before leaving the guest room. At this time, it was already afternoon. Chu Qingyan woke up feeling refreshed after a good sleep. She raised her eyebrows when she saw Jasper coming in with a box in her hand. He's gone? She asked as she sat on the couch with her chin resting on her hand. Yes, these are the pastries that His Highness the Fourth Prince asked me to bring to you. He said that he brought them from the palace. Jasper reported. Chu Qingyan glanced at it lazily and said casually, put it aside. I'm not in the mood to eat now. The most important thing for her now was to wait for Big Ice Cube to come back. Otherwise, nothing could arouse her interest. Jasper obediently put the box on the table. At this time, Xining asked puzzledly, Master, you have a good relationship with His Highness the Fourth Prince. Why don't you see him? Chu Qingyan grabbed her hair. I'm not in the mood to greet people now, and I don't have the energy. I'll talk to him next time. Xining nodded as if she understood. Jasper remembered what happened in the guest room and said in a relaxed tone, Master, Steward Bai just told me that if you're still uncomfortable, I can ask him to find a doctor at any time. This subordinate feels that his attitude towards you has changed greatly. Xining also chimed in. That's right, that's right. I've noticed it too. Ever since Master taught those stewards a lesson, I feel that our status in the residence has also risen. No one dares to deliberately make things difficult for us. It's not like 5 years ago, when they dared to bully us. Chu Qingyan sneered. The reason is very simple. They think that I'm a soft persimmon, but they don't expect that I'm a hard nail. They have been pricked by me, so they have fear in their hearts. And the most important thing is His Highness's attitude. They don't dare to go against me. Behind me stands their lord. If they want to touch me, they have to think about their own weight. Now they are afraid that I will find fault with them, because I already know all the accounts in their hands. So they are thinking about how to make up for the loopholes in it. They are so anxious that they can't wait to tuck their tails between their legs. They don't have the time and energy to deal with me. Besides, what's the benefit of going against me? Now that the entire mansion is mine, they can't do anything to me. So right now they can't wait to curry favor with you. No wonder so many stewards in the mansion are so courteous to me, a little maidservant. There are also a few old mothers who are so attentive to me when they see me. It seems that we have benefited from you. Xining clapped her hands and smiled. Chu Qingyan was amused by her words, but she still put on a stern face and said, although the people in the mansion are much more well-behaved now, we can't rule out some people with ulterior motives. So, you and Jasper should keep an eye on the people in the inner courtyard when you have time. The more people there are, the easier it is, just in case. Hearing their master's serious instructions, Xining and Jasper nodded seriously in response. After giving instructions, Chu Qingyan continued to lie limp on the bed, her face full of grief and indignation. Why wasn't the big ice cube back yet? Her anger had been slowly worn away by waiting. So when Xiao Su came back in the evening, Chu Qingyan was still lying limp on the bed, not even having the strength to fight. I heard that you haven't eaten anything the entire day? Before Xiao Su came in, he had asked Jasper and Xining about the little fellow's situation today, but he didn't expect that she hadn't come out the entire day. He thought that she was shy early in the morning and didn't want to go out, so he found it funny and heartache. Chu Qingyan lazily raised her brows and glared at the stinky fellow in front of her, who seemed to be proud of his success. She closed her eyes again and laid on her corpse. Ignoring him, Xiao Su smiled. His long arm scooped her up from the bed and placed her on his lap. He kissed her lips and said, "Get up and eat something." "I don't have the strength." She opened her eyes and looked at him angrily. She didn't notice that the collar of her clothes had loosened because of this tug, revealing her smooth and translucent skin. Xiao Su's gaze darkened. He then reached out to tidy her clothes and coaxed, "Then I'll ask them to bring the food in." Chu Qingyan harumphed a few times and didn't give him a good look. Xiao Su didn't mind and ordered the servants to bring the food in. Soon, a small table was placed beside the bed, and dishes that looked and smelled delicious were placed on the table one by one. After Xining and Jasper served the food, they tactfully retreated and closed the door. They stood guard outside to prevent anyone from disturbing the time the two masters were spending together. Xiao Su passed the bowl to her. She harumphed. "I don't have the strength to hold the bowl. You want me to feed you?" Xiao Su smiled. She raised her brows and looked at him with a look that said, "Guess it yourself." Xiao Su couldn't help but laugh. He picked up the spoon and fed her spoonful by spoonful. Chu Qingyan opened her mouth and ate. She pondered in her heart. The big ice block was so easy to talk to today, and went along with everything she said. Could it be that he felt that he had let her down for what happened last night? Did he owe her something? As she thought about it, she chewed on the meat and bones until crunching sounds could be heard. This lady is so angry. At this moment, Chu Qingyan wanted to open the dye house after giving him some color. Chapter 1068. Xiao Su noticed her little emotions. Although he was a little confused, he felt that she had a little girl attitude that she did not usually have. The more he liked her, the more he indulged her. One ate slowly, while the other was more patient, slowly feeding her. The two of them did not speak. One ate, while the other fed. They did not feel awkward, but instead felt that there was a faint warmth in the air. Unknowingly, she had already eaten more than half a bowl. Her body had also recovered its strength. After taking a bite, she suddenly felt a conscience and vaguely said, "Do you want to eat a bite?" Hearing her voice, Xiao Su couldn't help but feel warmth in his heart. He smiled slightly. "I already ate when I was in the palace." So he had already eaten his fill before coming back to see her? She suddenly felt that waiting for him in the room for the entire day was a little silly. Her little temper flared up. When he handed over a spoon, she turned her head and refused. "Not eating." "Just this little bit?" Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. "Just this little bit. I'm already full from anger." She slipped out of his embrace and crawled under the blanket. Lifting it, her entire body was tightly covered by the blanket. Seeing that there was only a silkworm cocoon left in front of him, Xiao Su put down the bowl and looked at her with an amused expression. "What are you angry about?" Why did these words sound like a boyfriend asking an unreasonable girlfriend? Chu Qingyan felt sullen in her heart. "You're not going to admit it after eating." "Humph. Speak properly." Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. He could only hear her humming under the blanket. She lifted the blanket, revealing a pair of bright black eyes. "What did you do? You actually dare to ask me? Stinky fellow." The little fellow in front of him had a soft voice that was very comfortable to listen to. After a busy day in the palace, he returned to the manor and heard her say a few words. The tiredness on his body dissipated in her bright eyes and gentle voice. As for what she said, he did not pay attention to it. He reached out to pinch her face, but she slapped it away. Her cheeks were puffed up in anger, and her eyes were bright. She looked very cute. Because of her actions, the collar of her clothes slid down to her shoulders, but she didn't notice it at all. His gaze darkened. With a thought, he bent down and accurately grabbed her pink hair. Originally, they were still confronting each other. Why did they suddenly kiss? Chu Qingyan was stunned for a moment, but she couldn't resist his attack and fell into it. But the skin on her shoulder felt cold, and she suddenly woke up. The hot air in front of her made her blush, but her rationality made her clench her teeth and not let him in. Xiao could feel her resistance. He gently bit her lips and then retreated. He stroked her face with his fingers and said hoarsely, "You don't like it? What was there to dislike? Pay. She just didn't want today's wait to be wasted. She wanted to have a good talk with him, but under his gentle gaze, she didn't know what to say. It wasn't wrong to say that she was being pretentious. But for a girl who had kept her chastity for so many years, her first night was very important. Although it was someone she liked, it was a huge regret in her life if she lost it in a daze. Seeing the little fellow's conflicted and embarrassed expression, Xiao suddenly thought of something. He also knew the reason why she was throwing a tantrum today, and he couldn't help but chuckle. This deep, hoarse, and sexy low voice would make any voice addict unable to control themselves. Chu Qingyan wrinkled her nose. Don't think that you can get away with it just because you laugh so beautifully. Bad guy. Tell me, are you throwing a tantrum because of what happened last night? He brushed away the strands of hair on her face and asked seriously, "Throwing a tantrum?" She angrily pointed at him and said, "You bullied me, and you don't allow me to throw a tantrum? You're too bad." Xiao reached out and grabbed her wrist. With a gentle lift, she slid out of the blanket like she was peeling an egg and fell into his embrace. The world spun, and when she opened her eyes again, she was already looking at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Why do I feel that based on what happened last night, it was you who bullied me and not me who bullied you?" He pressed his forehead against hers and said with a chuckle. Chu Qingyan's heart skipped a beat. What did he mean? Stop trying to fool me. This is a country where men are superior to women, not women. You ate me and you still say that you're at a disadvantage. You're too much. Although she had a bad feeling in her heart, Chu Qingyan still snorted. So you're saying that you've forgotten what happened last night? It was a question and a certain tone. If I still remembered, I would still be asking you. It was her first night. If she couldn't remember, it would be a regret for the rest of her life. Although it was shameless to think like this, she wanted to remember every detail with the big ice cube. Xiao face-bombed. As expected. Do you believe that I didn't eat you last night? He looked into her eyes and didn't avoid discussing this topic with her. The two of them had even done the most intimate thing, so he didn't feel that he needed to be polite with her. No. Then what was with the marks on her body today? Xiao could see the hesitation in her eyes and chuckled. You might not believe it, but I wasn't the one who forced myself on you last night. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Did the big ice cube mean that he wasn't the one who forced himself on her last night, so she was the one who acted like a rogue? She followed his gaze and saw that her loose clothes were sticking to her body, as if she was really seducing him. She immediately pulled her clothes tightly and fell into a daze. What on earth happened after drinking last night? She couldn't help but think back. Just as she was thinking about it, the person in front of her suddenly approached her. Looks like I have to teach you a lesson. Chu Qingyan blinked. Why did she feel like gritting her teeth when she heard the big ice cube's words? What had she done? Just as she was in a daze, the person in front of her suddenly put her on the bed and walked to the door. Where are you going? Why did he leave just like that? Xiao stopped and turned to look at her. I'll clear the obstacles first. I'll reminisce with you later. With that, he pulled open the door and left. At that moment, Chu Qingyan was still immersed in what he had just said. Why did she feel a chill run down her spine? Especially when he emphasized the last few words. Waiting was unbearable. She couldn't focus on recalling, so she simply picked up the blanket and covered herself. After a while, she heard a creak coming from the window. She lifted the quilt and saw a vigorous figure landing on the ground. She burst out laughing. A dignified prince actually jumped in through the window of his own home. Ha 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 ha. Xiao Su paused and narrowed his eyes dangerously. Let's see if you can still laugh later. Chapter 1069. Chu Qingyan shivered slightly when she met the Big Ice Cube's unusual gaze. Why did she feel that Big Ice was a bit dangerous? The person in the distance walked towards her slowly with a strong presence that couldn't be ignored. In the quiet room, there was only the sound of clothes rubbing against each other. She grabbed the corner of the blanket and wanted to retreat, but her pride didn't allow her to retreat. He was already in front of her. He leaned over and leaned his forehead against hers. Their noses were touching, and their lips were only inches away. They could touch if they turned around. There was almost no distance between them, so she couldn't help but open her eyes wide. Are you ready? A voice that was close to a whisper rang in her ears. She rarely heard him speak so softly, and it felt like her ears were about to get pregnant. She wanted to nod, but she suddenly realized something when she moved her neck. Ready for what? Xiao Su smiled, seeing how confused she was. I'll help you recall what happened last night. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and asked. Do you really want to? I don't care. I'm just worried that you'll overthink things in the future. I don't want to see you fuming at me every day. I'm clearly the victim. He reached out to tuck her hair behind her ear and chuckled innocently. Humph, who's afraid? Come on. He was the victim? She didn't want to be accused by him for no reason in the future. Thus, Chu Qingyan couldn't stand his provocation and pretended to be fearless. She didn't see the glint in his eyes when she said that, so she walked into his provocation step by step. She didn't know what Big Ice wanted to do at all. She subconsciously felt that what happened next might be beyond her imagination. But the arrow was already on the bow and had to be released. Xiao Su leaned close to her. She couldn't stand the pressure and slowly leaned back, but in the end her arm slipped and she fell into the blanket. When she opened her eyes, he placed his hands on either side of her and looked at her with bright eyes. Do you still remember this position? He said. Ha! You pulled me onto the bed last night, Xiao Su explained patiently. Chu Qingyan's eyes widened. However, Xiao Su didn't give her time to recall. He lowered his head and kissed her lips, just like how she had described it last night. Xiao Su didn't forget to ask her. Do you still remember this? Her brain was about to short-circuit from his teasing, and she couldn't hear what he said at all. Their positions had switched, and he was lying on the bed while she was straddling him. Although she was on top of him, she was still in a daze. She couldn't believe that she would force herself on him like the ice block had said and done. Because she didn't believe it, she decided to block out the scene in front of her and recall what had happened last night. However, before she could think about it, a pair of hands had already appeared on her back. His presence made her tremble all over, and she didn't dare to lower her head to look at the person below. Big Ice Cube, last night did I really do so many different things? She was too embarrassed to speak, but Xiao Su could see her hesitation and shyness from her words and expression. He felt that it was about time to stop, but when he thought about how the little fellow had ignored his advice to drink, he decided that he had to teach her a lesson this time, so that she would remember it. Otherwise, what would she do if he wasn't by her side? Do you still remember last night when you said that you could take off your clothes now? He touched her face with one hand and imitated her tone, enunciating each word. Boom! A stream of heat surged into her head, and then it exploded like a flower. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something. Suddenly, an image appeared in her blank mind. The main characters were her and Big Ice Cube. She hugged his shoulder, her breath was like orchids, and her eyes were like silk. Big Ice Cube, don't worry. I only like you. Then shouldn't we get down to business? So can you take off your clothes now? She couldn't believe that the person hugging Big Ice Cube was her. But that nose, eyes, mouth, clothes, and appearance, if it wasn't her, who else could it be? Then immediately after, other scenes flooded in. But at this moment, the world was spinning, and she had already fallen back onto the bed. She was completely suppressed by him and couldn't move. She timidly pursed her lips, looked at the person in front of her, and made a final struggle. Big Ice Cube, that can't be true, right? He could tell that she had recalled what happened last night, but Xiao Su felt that it was far from enough. What do you think? He reached out to take off the mask on his face, met her bright eyes, and said faintly. She swallowed her saliva, then seemed to have thought of something and gained some confidence. She reached out to grab his collar and harumphed. But in the end you ate me, and the one who suffered is still me. You can't deny this. Hearing her words, Xiao had a strange expression on his face. You really think so? She felt that Big Ice Cube's tone was a bit off, but she still nodded firmly. Isn't it? When I woke up this morning, my body. She suddenly felt embarrassed to say it out loud. Xiao sighed softly. Looks like we still have to continue. What? Chu Qingyan was confused. Xiao narrowed his eyes and looked at her fixedly. Don't you want to know the final answer? I'll give it to you. Chu Qingyan wanted to say something, but he lowered his head and kissed her. Her slightly opened lips made it easier for him to enter. The storm-like kiss caused their bodies to gradually heat up. Xiao's long arms wrapped around her, and they rolled under the blanket. Darkness instantly surrounded the two of them. After taking a deep breath, they calmed down and could only see each other's bright black eyes. In the darkness, because they couldn't see clearly, their senses were even more sensitive. She felt his hand move to her lower abdomen, and with a slight tremble, her clothes were all torn. She felt a chill all over and couldn't help but want to hug herself tightly. But someone was faster than her. He lowered his head, and his lips, tongue, and hands were soft and nimble as he teased her. Chu Qingyan was already paralyzed by his series of actions. Apart from panting and moaning, her rationality was slowly being devoured. And everything that happened last night kept replaying in her mind. It turned out that she was really drunk at the beginning and kept pestering Big Ice Cube. In the end, he had no choice but to be teased by her and take the initiative. Feeling the change in the little one under him, Xiao supported his upper body with one hand and caressed her face with the other. His voice was hoarse and low. Will you still drink in the future? The last sentence made her body go limp. She looked at him with her big eyes, and there was innocence and confusion in her moist eyes. Silence spoke louder than words, and inaction spoke louder than action. This made Xiao's eyes darken. Chapter 1070. Chu Qingyan did not notice his strangeness as she pulled her lips in a wronged manner. How could I know that I wouldn't be like myself after drinking? You're also in the wrong. You clearly knew that I would be like this, but you didn't tell me. You only told me not to drink, and your attitude was so firm. According to my personality, I would secretly do it when you weren't around. It's a good thing that it didn't turn into a big mistake, otherwise what if I made you wear a green hat? Xiao realized that he was in the wrong for not telling the truth, but looking at her like this, she didn't seem to realize it. Especially the last sentence, it aroused his instincts. He reached out to pinch her face as he spoke in a dangerous tone. It looks like I need to teach you a lesson so you'll remember. Before Chu Qingyan could react, the person above had already covered her. She wanted to say something, but it was already too late. In the following time, no matter how she acted like a spoiled child, or even trembled and cried for mercy, his heart did not soften. The gold and silver pattern on the brocade quilt moved with the night light. It shined with a faint light and emitted a charming light in the dark night. The candlelight moved without any wind as it flickered in the room, and occasionally made a poochie sound. The curtain that was lowered kept swaying. Through the light of the candlelight, one could see the moving quilt inside. Even if they couldn't see the scene inside, they could imagine how intense it was inside. Time slowly passed under the flickering candlelight. Slowly, the brocade quilt followed the curve and slowly slid down. It revealed a strong man's body as well as a sweaty body covered under it. Sweat drenched each other's cheeks and the black hair stuck to her face and forehead. It was like she had just been fished out of the water. Other than the long hair covering her body, all her clothes were gone. Xiao struggled to move his gaze away, and only looked at her face. And she was being teased by him to the point of sobbing. Be good, don't cry. It's also hard for me to hold it in. He reached out to help her wipe her tears as his voice carried a trace of tenderness. Chu Qingyan glanced at his well-dressed appearance, while her hair was barely covering her body. She felt even more wronged and unfair. What right did she have to be in such a sorry state? She was even picked by him until she couldn't get up or down. He, on the other hand, was still well dressed. He couldn't help but take her hand and give it a kiss. So I've raised a wolf cub. He didn't care about the pain in his hand at all as he chuckled and teased. Chu Qingyan flung his hand away and snorted. So we stopped here last night? Yes. Xiao Su did not hide it. Chu Qingyan exploded when she heard that. What's the difference between eating and not eating? You all. She couldn't say it out loud. He had touched what he shouldn't have touched, kissed what he shouldn't have kissed, and touched what he shouldn't have. What else did he want? Based on the situation last night, if I didn't put you down, you would have let me go, His hand was still on her waist, and as he spoke he was rubbing it subconsciously. She suddenly went limp, and her eyes were watery, making Xiao Su's breath catch. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and lay down beside her. He was afraid that if he couldn't control himself later, his restraint last night and tonight would be in vain. Chu Qingyan knew that she was in the wrong. After all, she was the one who took the initiative first. Later on, she forgot after she sobered up. And that was why the big ice cube repeated last night. But no matter what, she was dissatisfied with their current situation. Especially the evil fire that had been stirred up in her. She had nowhere to vent it now, and she wasn't stupid. She could feel that the big ice cube was enduring a lot of pain. She rolled her eyes and decided to give up her modesty for once when she was sober. Therefore, when Xiao Su was caught off guard, she flipped over and pressed herself against him. While he was surprised, she slowly straightened her back. Her hair fell down and covered her body. However, such a beautiful scene made people's hearts ripple with excitement. Ian, what are you doing? He thought that after this incident, she would be too shy to face anyone, but he didn't expect her to be so bold. It was as if she was looking at the drunk her last night. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and glared at him. Why are you dressed properly and I'm not? Although I was the one who took the initiative last night, can you say that you didn't take advantage of me in the end? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. What the little fellow said made sense. Inadvertently, his gaze fell on her fair and rosy skin, and he couldn't help but look away. After she finished speaking, she didn't care about his reaction. She reached out and began to pull off his belt and clothes. Xiao Su reached out to stop her, but she fiercely glared at him. In the end, he could only give up and let her go up and down until she didn't leave anything behind. In the end, the two of them were naked. She found that it wasn't that he didn't have any reaction, and it could be said that it was very strong. She was ashamed and depressed. Since we're already here, how can you still hold back? Xiao Su didn't want to be seen by her. At first he was a bit embarrassed, but when he heard her words he couldn't help but sigh. With the person I love in front of me, do you think I don't want to take advantage of her? But Ian, I cherish you, so I don't want to take you at this time. Do you understand? Hearing his words, her eyes were slightly moist, and her heart was incomparably moved. It's okay, I don't care about those empty formalities. I'm willing to give myself to you. When she said this, she didn't dare to look at him, but she gathered a lot of courage. To be able to make a girl say something like this. It was enough to see how much she cared about the person in front of her. Several complicated emotions flashed through Xiao Su's eyes. Shock, joy, moved, and finally love. He moved his lips, but in the end he didn't say anything. He reached out his long arm, pressed her down on the bed, and kissed her heavily. Their skin rubbed against each other, and the temperature suddenly rose. It felt like two balls of fire, constantly fusing together. But in the end he stopped. He hugged her and panted heavily, trying to calm down the passion at this time. Chu Qingyan's eyes were half closed. Her body was wet, but she also felt uncomfortable. Ian, let's wait a bit more. I don't want you to be hurt. His voice was low, but his tone was firm. She knew that he had his own considerations. Even if it was hard for him to hold back, he didn't want to take her. To her, this kind of cherishing, wasn't it a strong love for her? She reached out and wrapped her arms around him, nodding with her eyes closed. Xiao Su's lips held a smile, but his body was so stiff that he couldn't help but frown. It seemed like in the end, he was the one who reaped what he sowed. She also felt his body stiffen, so she raised her head and looked at him timidly. Then what are you going to do now? You can help me. He lowered his head and kissed the corner of her eye, his hot breath pouring into her ear. Her face instantly heated up. How can I help you?" she stuttered. He didn't say anything, but pulled her hand down. Her face and ears instantly turned red, like a crayfish that had just been taken out of a steamer. Chapter 1071. Clouds in the hair, golden hair ornaments, hibiscus canopy warmth spent the spring night. The candlelight burned out, and the first rays of dawn appeared. The dim yellow light was slowly replaced by white light. But the windows were tightly shut, and the bed under the canopy was still dark. The bed shook violently, and after a low growl, it finally quieted down. For the entire night, she felt as if her hand was about to break. Her entire body was limp on the bed, and she didn't even want to move. Sweat rolled down from her forehead, but Xiao didn't care. He reached out to touch her face, and pulled her into his arms with satisfaction. The summer was hot, and the ice in the room had mostly melted since no one came in to change it. The temperature had risen quite a bit, and the two of them were sticky and sweaty from the exercise just now. Hearing the uncomfortable moans of the person in his arms, Xiao sat up, carried her, and walked to the cubicle. At this time, Chu Qingyan was in a half-awake, half-asleep state. She didn't have the energy to ask him, so she let him go. There was a bathtub filled with clean water inside, and Xiao carefully put her in. The cold water wrapped around her body, and Chu Qingyan sighed comfortably. She was a little more awake, and although she knew what he was doing, she didn't have the energy to say anything to him. Xiao scooped up the water, and carefully helped her wash. This was the first time that he had personally served her, and it was also the first time that she had been so obedient. He couldn't help but lighten his strength. By the time he had dried her and carried her again, she was already sound asleep. He put her back on the bed, covered her with the blanket, and touched her head. He kissed her lightly, then turned and returned to the cubicle. He used the water to do a simple wash, put on a set of clothes and returned to the bed. Perhaps it was because she felt his presence suddenly disappear beside her, but she didn't sleep well. It wasn't until he lay down beside her again that she rolled into his embrace. She hugged him with both hands and pressed herself against him before she fell asleep peacefully. Xiao felt that she relied on him wholeheartedly, and his heart was warm. He pressed her head into his arms, closed his eyes and felt at ease. Soon he fell asleep. In the quiet night, the two of them slept peacefully in each other's arms. After a good night's sleep, when Chu Qingyan opened her eyes, it was already bright outside. She could clearly see the appearance of the person in front of her. He had sharp and stylish eyebrows, long and dense black eyelashes, a handsome nose, and thin pink lips. His skin was fair, and he looked harmless in his sleep, with a rare hint of childishness. Chu Qingyan was entranced. She couldn't help but reach out and trace his eyebrows. She even naughtily pulled his cheeks. It felt really good. It was comparable to a woman's. Suddenly, she saw his eyelids move. She immediately took back her hand and closed her eyes. She tilted her head and pretended to sleep. When she closed her eyes, Xiao opened his eyes. Seeing her tightly closed eyes, he thought that she didn't know that she was pretending to sleep. His heart moved and he slightly curled his lips. He tilted his head and sucked on her lips, teasing her as he slowly sucked the air out of her body. She felt a chill on her lips, but she didn't dare open her eyes. However, she quickly felt that something was strange. He was attacking her, making it hard for her to breathe. In the end, she couldn't hold it in and could only struggle to hit his chest. Only then did Xiao let her go as he gave a low laugh. He really was taking advantage of her and still acting innocent. Chu Qingyan wiped her lips and took in large mouthfuls of fresh air. She glared at him. This was too much. But leaning against his chest, hearing the pleasant laughter that came from inside him, her face turned red. Forget it, she was the one who teased him first, so she wouldn't argue with him. Don't you need to go to court today? At this moment, the two of them were hugging each other. The intimate contact and the warm breath made her involuntarily recall everything that they did last night. Her face quickly turned red. She felt that if she didn't find a topic to divert her attention, she would probably become a cooked crayfish again. I'm staying at home to accompany my wife. With last night's intimate progress, Xiao no longer put on airs and said intimately. Hearing his words, she felt a little shy and embarrassed, but she also felt happy. Her hands held onto his clothes as her smile was a little sweet. Xiao's gaze had not left her body since he woke up. At this moment, her expression did not escape his eyes. This kind of shy person was like a feather that tickled his heart. He couldn't help but hug her again. He kissed and touched her until her face was so red that water could be squeezed out. Only then did he reluctantly let her go. Yesterday, Imperial Father summoned me to the palace because Third Brother had already received the Southern Song envoy. Imperial Father hoped that I could quickly arrange the military forces inside and outside the city to guard against any possible changes. He knew that the little girl's sudden change in mood towards him yesterday was probably because she couldn't see him when she woke up. She thought that he didn't want to admit it, so he explained. Chu Qingyan leaned on his shoulder. Her eyes were like water. When she heard him say this, her eyes lit up. It seems that His Majesty is still wary of Southern Song's peace negotiations. He doesn't trust Southern Song that much. Xiao stroked her long hair. Hearing this, he chuckled. Imperial Father is a smart person. He has a line of defense in his heart when it comes to people and matters. He doesn't even trust the people closest to him, let alone an enemy country that he once invaded. Then why didn't he let you annihilate them in one fell swoop and take Southern Song into your own territory? Wouldn't that be a worry-free situation? Although she didn't approve of war, Chu Qingyan still had some doubts after analyzing the Sichuan Emperor's actions. Perhaps his fear of me is far greater than the threat of Southern Song. When Xiao said this, the corners of his mouth curled up in a self-deprecating manner. When Chu Qingyan heard this, her heart ached. She couldn't help but reach out and pat his back as if she was coaxing a child. Don't feel bad. He has eyes but can't see gold and jade. Let's not bicker with him. When Xiao heard this, he smiled. The dark clouds in his heart couldn't help but disperse because of her words. I plan to wait until the matter with the Southern Song envoy is settled. Then I'll ask Imperial Father for a decree to consummate the marriage. What do you think? If he didn't let her become his legitimate wife, he was afraid that in the coming days, just looking at her and not being able to eat her would be enough to torture him. However, the most important thing was that the little fellow was the person he wanted to protect the most in this lifetime. He didn't want any unforeseen changes to their marriage in the coming days. Once the two of them were married, he would be able to set his heart at ease. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she couldn't help but bury her head in his chest. In a muffled voice she said, "I'll listen to you." When she was young in the modern era, she had once imagined how her future husband would propose in a romantic manner before she would agree. Now she didn't think that the proposal, the scene of fresh flowers, a diamond ring, and so on were that important. As long as she was sure that this person was the one who would hold her hand for the rest of her life, she wouldn't care about anything else. If she liked him, then she would be together. If she loved him, then she would be together for the rest of her life. Chapter 1072. The reply that came from his embrace made Xiao unable to help but raise the corner of his mouth. Ever since he was young, he had never really wanted to have anyone or anything, and he had never felt that having something he liked would make him feel an indescribable happiness. Now, just a simple nod and reply made his heart swell, as if something was about to overflow. Perhaps, this was the feeling of happiness. "Aren't you afraid that someone will come in and find out that you're in my room?" After speaking, she no longer hesitated and wriggled out of his embrace as she asked nervously. Only then did she remember that they were basically disheveled right now. If Jasper and the rest came in, it would be awkward. Xiao lightly tapped her nose. "Don't you think that it's a bit late to worry about this problem?" Ah, she didn't understand. "As long as you don't go out today, no one will come in and disturb you." Xiao liked to see her confused look, so he didn't keep her in suspense. "Before I came in last night, I already gave the order, so you can sleep as long as you want today." Chu Qingyan blinked, recalling the scene of him climbing through the window last night. So it was to cover up, so no one would know that he was in her room. It was no wonder that Xining and Jasper didn't wake her up, even though it was already so late. So he had already taken care of it early in the morning, No wonder he was so fearless. The big ice cube was too sneaky. She reached out and pinched his waist to punish him. Xiao reached out to grab her wrist and said in a low voice, "It's early in the morning. If you move around again, I can't guarantee what I will do." When these words came out, Chu Qingyan immediately settled down. Her hands were still sore and she didn't want to suffer anymore, so she obediently laid in his embrace. Once it was quiet, she couldn't help but yawn. Xiao once again pulled her into his embrace, patted her back and coaxed softly, "Sleep for a while more. I'll wake you up for lunch." They slept too late last night, so both of them were tired. She nodded and forgot what she wanted to say. She nestled in his embrace and slowly fell asleep. There was one thing he didn't tell the little fellow. If a marquis wanted to get married in the capital, the bride must be tested for her chastity by a nanny sent by the palace. If he wanted to be together with the little fellow as soon as possible, this procedure was indispensable. That was why he repeatedly chose to restrain himself at the last minute. He didn't want the little fellow to bear those rumors that she shouldn't have. He endured it for a while to avoid future worries. He was willing to give the little fellow the respect and understanding she deserved. He had only met one person in his life, and he was willing to give everything to cherish, love, and pamper her. Xiao patted her back, looked at her sweet face, and lightly pecked her pink lips. Then, he closed his eyes and went back to sleep. Outside, the sun was scorching hot. Inside the room, it was dark and cool. It was good to sleep. The two people who were sleeping next to each other exuded happiness and contentment. However, in a town on the border between Sichuan and Nansong, there was a show of being chased and being chased. Search, the princess can't have run far. Rows of Nansong soldiers were searching everywhere with weapons in their hands. On a big tree, a small head peeked out. Seeing a group of soldiers coming from afar, she immediately shrunk her neck and used the dense branches and leaves to hide herself. Soon, the soldiers passed by below and didn't discover her existence. She let out a sigh of relief and prepared to spend a few days on the tree. In any case, she had brought enough rations. When they couldn't find her and left, she would be able to rest easy. Just as she hugged the tree trunk and prepared to take a nap, she suddenly felt her body go cold. Then she heard a rustling sound. She had a bad premonition and slowly turned her head to look at the source of the sound. She exploded. "Ah, a snake!" She lost her head out of fear. Her hands loosened and she fell from above. It's over. Falling from such a high place, even if she wasn't paralyzed, she would have broken bones. Heavens! However, just as she was about to bear the pain of falling, she unexpectedly didn't feel any pain. Instead, she felt her body being embraced by a warm and soft embrace. Xiao had just met up with the Nansong envoy group yesterday. However, the Nansong envoy group was very perfunctory with him. Until now, he hadn't sat down to talk with them. Today, he found out that the reason why they avoided him was because their princess was missing. This was a very embarrassing matter, causing them to delay time again. After knowing the reason, Xiao didn't care. In any case, no matter how much trouble they caused, they still had to hand over a princess. If they couldn't find her, they could just send another one over. It wasn't difficult at all. Therefore, after staying in the room for a long time, the air was stuffy. He dismissed his attendants and went out for a walk. When he walked into the small forest, he could feel an unusual aura from the tree. He wanted to go forward to check it out, but he didn't expect that when he just stood still, a person would fall on top of it. He subconsciously wanted to avoid it, but when he saw the figure of a woman, he had a plan in his heart and reached out to save her. The person in his arms had a pretty face. She was just frightened and had her eyes tightly closed. However, when he saw her dress, he was even more certain of his guess. After Pang Zhijing felt that the danger had passed, she secretly opened one of her eyes. What entered her eyes was a fluffy fox fur coat. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Why would he wear such thick clothes on such a hot day? Was he sick? When she looked up, she saw a gentle and handsome face. It was really pleasing to the eye. She sighed in her heart. However, when she saw the other party's smile that wasn't a smile, she realized her situation and couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Xiao was good at observing and guessing people's thoughts. When he saw her eyes flash with surprise, doubt, amazement, and finally embarrassment, he defined this woman in his heart. She was an enemy country's princess who couldn't pose a threat. "Miss, can you go down now?" Xiao smiled faintly and asked gently. His voice was like a spring breeze, causing Pang Zhijing's face to turn red. You let go." When she was nervous, she couldn't speak properly. She was clearly someone who wasn't afraid of anything, so how could she show her fear in front of an ancient person? Xiao obeyed her words and let go. However, Pang Zhijing forgot that her foot was still injured. When she landed, her entire body fell to the ground. The steamed buns, and pastries she was carrying fell to the ground with her. She looked at the round steamed buns that had rolled to the other party's boots. She felt that the sky had become darker, the world had become darker, and her face had become even hotter. In front of such a handsome man, she was in such a sorry state. It was really shameful. Why was it that in ancient times, bad luck kept happening one after another? Pang Zhijing lightly sighed and climbed up from the ground. The boots were still in her eyes. Her eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 1073. This young master, can you save this little girl? This little girl will be eternally grateful. The ancient people should have said this. Pang Zhijing widened her eyes and tried to act innocent. Xiao originally wanted to call for help, but hearing her words, he immediately changed his mind. "Miss, how do you want this one to help you?" After leaving the capital, the journey was quite boring. Encountering these rude and unreasonable envoys of the southern blue continent was even more boring. This princess of the southern blue continent seemed to be a little interesting, so he decided to waste some time to probe her bottom line. When Pang Zhijing heard this, a little hope ignited in her heart. She struggled to stand up. She supported herself with one leg, and her other leg was injured, so she could only touch the ground. She staggered forward, wanting to get closer to him and whisper to him, but she found that when she moved forward, he was moving back. She couldn't help but tactfully stand still. Then she gathered her emotions and very quickly, she cried out tearfully, "Young master, this little girl's name is Shirhan. Because my family was poor, I was sold to a slave trader by my parents. Later on, I was severely beaten. I couldn't take it and escaped. You see, this leg was injured by them. Then I coincidentally met the southern blue envoy who was visiting the Sichuan. On the way, they caught me and said that they wanted to serve their princess, but this princess somehow ran away. They said that they wanted to investigate my crime and kill me. I was scared, so I escaped when they weren't paying attention." Speaking up to hear, Pang Zhijing pinched her thigh and forced her eyes to turn red. She looked as pitiful as possible. She raised her head and said pitifully, "So young master, can you save my life and take me away from here?" Her little actions did not escape Xiao's eyes. Moreover, he saw through her thoughts. He looked at the girl in front of him with some surprise. Looking at her standing posture, he knew that the injury on her leg was very serious. However, she was still able to analyze the pros and cons in this situation and fabricate a reason for him to take her away. It seemed that she wasn't a stupid girl. At the very least, she knew when to yield and when to stand tall. "You said that you are the princess's servant?" Xiao looked at her with a faint smile. Pang Zhijing nodded, but soon felt that his tone was a little strange. However, she didn't think too much about it. "Can young master extend a helping hand to me? When I'm safe, I'll definitely repay your kindness." Xiao chuckled, his expression unreadable. Pang Zhijing saw that he was just standing there and looking at her without replying. Her heart was beating like a drum. Could it be that this person was afraid after hearing that it was related to the Southern Blue Imperial family? "Forget it, I won't force him." Just as she was about to give up, a few men in tight clothes suddenly appeared behind the man. She was stunned. How could these people walk so silently? She didn't notice them at all. "Your Highness, Lord Tori wishes to see you," one of them said respectfully. Pang Zhijing froze when she heard the title. "Your Highness? Who are you?" Xiao looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. To be able to appear in a place heavily guarded by the southern blue continent, and even enter a place with no one around, who do you think I am? She suddenly remembered that these 2 days should be the time when Sichuan Kingdom would send people to pick her up. Her maid had mentioned that the person in charge of receiving them this time was the third prince of Sichuan, Xiao Ho. "You're Xiao Ho," she blurted out. "How dare you? How dare you call our highness by his name?" The man who spoke just now stepped forward and said sternly. Xiao Ho raised his hand and dismissed his subordinate. His voice was still gentle as he said, "So, do you think I'll agree to your request for help? Your Highness." When he called out her name, Peng Zhijing felt as if the entire sky had collapsed. She had escaped with great difficulty, but unfortunately, she had encountered the archenemy of the southern blue continent. She swallowed her saliva and made a final struggle. "I don't know what you're talking about. Since you're busy, I won't disturb you any longer. The green hills will no longer flow, and the green waters will always flow." She turned around and wanted to leave. However, at this moment, a group of people heard the commotion and quickly surrounded them. When they saw Xiao Ho, they immediately saluted. "This general greets your highness, the third prince." When Xiao Ho raised his hand and had them rise, the leader of the southern blue soldiers saw the person standing under the tree. He said in surprise, "Your highness, so you're here. You've made this general look for you." "It's over. I really can't leave this time." Peng Zhijing turned around and waved her hand at the soldier. She chuckled and said, "It's a good night with a full moon. It's suitable for a stroll. The doctor said that exercise can help with the recovery of injuries, so I came out by myself. I hope I didn't cause any trouble for you." The soldier's eyes twitched. Lord Tory was so angry that he almost wanted to punish all the guards according to military law. However, when it came to the princess, it was an understatement. Xiao Ho quietly observed the conversation from the side. He was a little surprised by Peng Zhijing's attitude, but he quickly regained his calm. "I was rude just now. Please forgive me, your highness." He bowed slightly. Aside from Peng Zhijing, no one else knew what had just happened. The southern blue soldiers thought that it was Xiao Ho who had helped them find the princess, saving them from Lord Tory's wrath. As such, they felt grateful towards him. Peng Zhijing was the only one who couldn't speak of the bitterness in her heart. She could only fiercely glare at him. "This person actually tricked me and delayed my departure. It seems like he already knew my identity. He just didn't say anything and watched me act like a clown in front of him. This is too much." However, at this moment, she couldn't do anything to him. She could only secretly glare at him. If it wasn't for him, she would have already escaped. If she had the chance, she definitely wouldn't forgive him. Xiao Ho sensed her angry glare. However, he didn't put her in his eyes. With an indifferent expression, he said to the southern blue soldiers, "This prince still has matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first. Goodbye." Xiao Ho nodded at Peng Zhijing. Then, he slowly disappeared into the lush greenery. The southern blue soldiers couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, he was the famous prince of Sichuan country. His words and actions were elegant and gentle, making people feel as if they were bathed in a spring breeze. Peng Zhijing, who was standing to the side, glared at his back. After he left, Peng Zhijing looked at the dried rations by her feet, and felt a little regretful. These were the rations she had saved from the past few days. Unfortunately, they were all dirty. Just as she was about to withdraw her gaze and accept her fate, she saw something from the corner of her eyes. She couldn't help but turn around. She saw a dead snake lying under the tree with a leaf stuck in its head. Below it was a pool of blood. Wasn't this the snake she saw on the tree? Her whole body trembled. She couldn't help but look in the direction Xiao Ho left. When did this person make a move? Just now it was just the two of them. Yet they had quietly dealt with it. Too frightening. She suddenly touched her neck. Imagining that the leaf had pierced her body, she suddenly shivered. Forget it. A good woman doesn't fight with a man. She decided to let him go this time and not bicker with him. Chapter 1074. When Xiao Ho returned to his courtyard, he saw two people waiting for him. One was the envoy from Southern Blue, Tory, whom he met yesterday. The other one was dressed in a blue brocade robe with a veil hat on his head. Although he couldn't see his face clearly, he was a man of about the same age as I Ching and had a noble air about him. Xiao Ho retracted his gaze and looked at Sir Tori. Sir Tori, is there something important for you to visit me so late at night? Tori was tall and strong. He stood in front of the gentle Xiao Ho and said with a strong voice, "Someone wants to see the third prince. May I have a word with you?" Faced with Tori's righteous and unfriendly tone, Xiao Ho's expression didn't change at all. "Sir Tori, please." At this time, the arrogant Tori turned around and bowed to invite the mysterious man in blue. The mysterious man entered the room first with his hands behind his back. Tori followed him eagerly. Xiao Ho's subordinate said angrily, "Your Highness, these people are too much." Xiao Ho raised his hand and chuckled. "It's okay. You wait outside. I'll see what they are up to." After entering the room, the servants served tea. Xiao Ho sat down on the main seat and glanced at Tori, who was sitting below the mysterious man. He thought of something and said calmly, "Sir Tori, you said someone wants to see me. Is it this young master in blue?" "Yes." Tori nodded proudly. At this time, the mysterious man who was sitting quietly suddenly took off his veil hat and revealed his angular face. He smiled impolitely. "Princey, we've crossed paths many times. Today is the first time we meet. Nice to meet you." The man in front of him was tall and majestic. His eyes were sharp and his whole body exuded the condescending aura of a ruler. He gave Xiao Ho a warning. However, Xiao Ho remained unmoved. His features were gentle, and his expression was calm. He was like a harmless, noble young master. Even though the other party did not reveal his identity, Xiao Ho had guessed his origins from the beginning. "It's my honor to be able to meet with your highness." Peng Huang frowned subtly. It turned out that this person had already seen through his identity. "Prince Yi is indeed intelligent. You know who I am at first glance. I admire you." Xiao Ho smiled. "A few days ago, I received news that the Crown Prince was secretly following the envoy team. Today, I saw Lord Tori's attitude towards you and the Crown Prince's unconcealable noble aura, so I guessed it. I'm not smart, but I'm good at observation." Xiao Ho's words were undoubtedly a gesture of sincerity. He was telling Peng Huang that his people had already grasped the movements of the Southern Heavenly Envoy group before they had arrived. Although it was uncomfortable to be monitored, Peng Huang didn't take it to heart since the other party was his partner. "Since Prince Yi is being so frank, I won't beat around the bush with you anymore. This time, I came with the group of envoys to meet with you and discuss the next step of the plan." Xiao Ho paused for a moment, then said, "How did your highness know that I would be the one to receive you?" Peng Huang raised his eyebrows and looked at him. "Your Majesty, in order to show the importance of this negotiation, we'll choose one of the princes from the imperial family. However, the King of England, Xiao Su, is Southern Heavenly Envoy's mortal enemy. Sending him here will only put both sides in an awkward position. Second Prince Xiao Yao hasn't been involved in court affairs for many years, so the fourth prince is the best candidate. However, Prince Yi, you have been keeping a low profile for so long. It's time for you to slowly appear in the public eye. Wouldn't it be a pity if you missed such a good opportunity?" Xiao Ho didn't comment. "Although your highness isn't in Sichuan, you are able to understand our situation clearly. I admire you." It seemed that Peng Huang wasn't someone to be trifled with. However, at this moment, he also wanted to deal with smart people and get what he needed. "I can't compare to Prince Yi's forbearance and determination for more than 10 years. A person who can achieve great things must be more patient than others. You are a person who can see the big picture. Your temperament is enough for you to achieve great things in the future. Making a deal with you, I believe that it won't take long for us to achieve our goals." After speaking, Peng Huang didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Xiao Ho revealed a knowing smile. "Of course. I believe that our cooperation will be very pleasant." "Good. I want Xiao Su's life and his reputation destroyed to repay the hatred in my heart. If you need any manpower or material resources, I will fully support you." Peng Huang spoke slowly with hatred in his voice. When he thought of the hundreds of thousands of Southern Heavenly Envoy soldiers who died at the hands of Xiao Ran, his anger couldn't be quelled for a long time. "Your Highness is a straightforward person. I definitely won't let you down." With Peng Huang's words, Xiao Ho felt that he had achieved the goal of this trip. His brows relaxed and a bloodthirsty light flashed in his eyes. It disappeared into the depths of his eyes. Xiao Su is a smart person. However, if we work together, there's no need to fear that we won't be able to take him down. In the following days, I will wait and see. Pang Huang hooked his lips into a sinister smile. If Pang Huang was an unsheathed sharp sword, then Xiao Ho was a seemingly soft but ruthless whip. With the two of them working together, they would undoubtedly become a huge obstacle to Xiao Su's future. After settling the matter, Xiao Ho leaned back in his chair and said with a smile, I heard that after the last battle, His Highness the Crown Prince suffered serious internal injuries. This king doesn't have anything to take out, but I do have some herbs that are rarely seen in the market. As he spoke, Xiao Ho clapped his hands and someone brought in a box. Xiao Ho had someone open it and said with a smile, This is a small gift for our first meeting. I hope your highness will kindly accept it. Pang Huang didn't care at first, but when his gaze fell on the medicine box, he couldn't help but pause. This is? The medicine monarch fruit blossoms once every 50 years and bears fruit once every 50 years. A stalk of medicinal herb can only bear 1 or 2 fruits every 100 years. It can be said to be a sacred healing fruit. Xiao Ho calmly narrated, not bothering to claim credit. On the other hand, Pang Huang's expression was slightly excited. He had been searching for this medicine sovereign fruit for several months and couldn't find it. He didn't expect to get it from Xiao Ho. With it, he could recover more than half of his internal energy. After ordering someone to accept it, Pang Huang's initial surprise turned into astonishment. It seemed that Xiao Ho had long predicted that he would personally appear to discuss the matter of cooperation. He was indeed a hidden prince. Pang Huang wanted to say something, but a southern blue guard walked in. Your Highness, the princess has been found. Pang Huang's expression turned cold. He finally found the stinky girl. Xiao Ho observed the change in Pang Huang's expression and had a guess in his heart. Since your Highness has important matters to attend to, then I won't delay your Highness any longer. Pang Huang turned to look at him with a mysterious expression. It's fine. Since Prince E has prepared a gift for this prince, then this prince has also prepared a gift for Prince E. Please come with me. Xiao Ho was puzzled, but he still agreed. Chapter 1075. Entering the courtyard, Pang Huang and Xiao Ho had yet to approach when they heard a commotion and the sound of things being smashed. Princess, His Highness the Crown Prince will be here soon. Please calm down. Otherwise, His Highness will blame you again. We servants will also be punished. Someone pleaded from inside. Princess? Have you ever seen a princess like this? Being monitored when she eats, when she goes to the toilet, and when she sleeps. She has no human rights at all. If you think being a princess is good, I'll let you be. A crisp female voice followed. Xiao Ho glanced at Pang Huang and found that his expression was very ugly. It seems that your country's princess is a straightforward person. Hearing this, Pang Huang knew that Xiao Ho was giving him a way out. He pursed his lips and strode in. Clang! A vase just happened to fall beside Pang Huang's feet. Pang Zhijing looked up and met Pang Huang's angry eyes. She shrugged. Sorry, my hand slipped. Pang Huang narrowed his eyes. The person who was afraid of him a few days ago suddenly became bold. Are you done? Pang Zhijing had enough of suppressing her temper these few days. She leaned against the bed wall, feeling like she was going to throw caution to the wind. Am I not a princess? Do I have to be controlled just by smashing things for fun? Such a shameless tone made Xiao Ho, who had just walked in, cast a glance over. Pang Zhijing also saw Xiao Ho. She snorted. Jackals of the same lair. Her voice was not soft, but it was not soft either. Everyone present heard it. The servants who served Pang Zhijing lowered their heads and lamented in their hearts. How did they meet such a master? Pang Huang looked at her coldly, but his words were directed at the servants in the room. All of you leave. The servants were pardoned and immediately left. Only the 3 of them were left in the room. Pang Zhijing could not stand the silence. She pursed her lips and said unhappily, What are you doing here? I don't welcome you. After saying that, Pang Zhijing pulled the quilt and covered her whole body, looking like she was 1,000 miles away from them. Xiao felt that there was no need to get involved in other people's family matters. He turned to Peng Huang and asked, "Where is the gift your highness mentioned? If it's not convenient, we can talk another day." Peng Huang twitched the corner of his mouth. "Princey, I'm sorry. The gift I mentioned is in this room." Although she ignored them on the surface, Peng Zhijing, who was hiding under the quilt, pricked up her ears and paid attention to the movements outside. At this time, when she heard this, she couldn't help but frown. What kind of gift was hidden in her room? Xiao followed Peng Huang's line of sight and saw the bulging bag on the bed. His eyes flashed with surprise. Peng Huang nodded. "Originally, I wanted my sister to help you gain a foothold in the Sichuan. But I didn't expect that after she fell into the pool and woke up a few days ago, she became a different person. She forgot her martial arts and lost her past memories. She has lost her value. Plus, she has caused a lot of trouble these days. I have lost my patience with her." Peng Huang paused and continued. "Now, except for her appearance, she can no longer fulfill our plan. So seeing that Prince Yi is still single after so many years, I'd like to fulfill your wish and give my sister to you." "I'm afraid that's not very good." Xiao looked at the bed and said in a difficult tone. "I know that the Lord is worried about the marriage. In fact, in this peace negotiation, no matter who it is, as long as the princess is here, it doesn't matter. I've already chosen a new princess from the imperial family. I can send her here in a few days." Peng Huang said disapprovingly. As soon as he finished speaking, the person on the bed lifted the quilt. Her eyes widened and she angrily rebuked. "I'm the princess of a country. How can you give me away so casually? As the crown prince of a country, how can you do such a heartless thing? Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by the people by selling your sister for glory?" Peng Huang looked at her indifferently. "It seems that you have forgotten everything. Don't you remember who killed your brother? Do you think I can even kill my own brother, let alone you, my half-sister?" Peng Zhijing was speechless. She thought that they didn't dare to touch her because she was the princess. Now she realized that she was just a chess piece. If they used her, they would use her. If they didn't use her, they would abandon her. Her fingers hidden in the quilt began to tremble. "Coincidentally, my wolfhounds haven't eaten human flesh for a long time. Since it's the crown prince's kindness, I'll accept it." Xiao smiled faintly. He didn't have the self-consciousness of disregard for human life. The two people in front of her were as cold as ice. They didn't care about human life and took it away. Peng Zhijing felt sad and scared for the first time since she came to this strange world. She clenched the quilt with both hands and gritted her teeth. "Okay, I promise you. I'll be a good princess." Peng Huang wasn't surprised. His expression was still indifferent. "No more running away?" Peng Zhijing shook her head. "Once you go to the Sichuan, you'll listen to Prince Yi's arrangements?" Peng Zhijing nodded. "Okay, remember what you said tonight. If I find out that you're disloyal, I guarantee that you'll suffer a fate worse than death," Peng Huang warned. Peng Zhijing pursed her lips and quietly endured this inhumane torture. Peng Huang glanced at her coldly. Then two secret guards walked in from outside the room and approached Peng Zhijing. Peng Zhijing was terrified. "What are you doing?" One of the guards held a bell-like chain in his hand towards her leg. She wanted to struggle but was held down by the other guard. She could only watch as they put the chain on her ankle. After the chain was put on, the two guards retreated. Peng Zhijing retracted her leg and tried to pry the chain apart. At first, no matter how she pulled, it wouldn't budge. Only the crisp sound of the bell could be heard. Peng Huang looked on coldly. "This is the exquisite lock, also known as the 7 apertures exquisite lock. As long as you wear this lock, no matter where you go, you won't be able to escape from this compass." Peng Zhijing turned around and saw a palm-sized object in his hand. There was a pointer on it, and it was pointing towards her position. Could it be a tracker? "You're so despicable." She squeezed these words out from between her teeth. Peng Huang chuckled. "How can I achieve great things if I'm not despicable? As long as you don't play any tricks and obediently complete the task at the Sichuan, I might be happy and unlock your exquisite lock." Peng Zhijing kicked the quilt angrily. as if she was venting her anger on Pang Huang. Pang Huang ignored her. He turned around and handed the compass and a bunch of keys to Xiao, who had been watching from the side. Then I'll give these 7 keys and the compass to Prince Yi. I hope you can take good care of them. If my sister runs away again, you don't have to worry about it. Xiao saw Pang Zhijing's eager look as she stared at the keys. He smiled and took them. The 7 apertures exquisite lock had 7 keyholes. 7 keys were needed to open it. Xiao played with the keys and followed Pang Huang out, leaving Pang Zhijing venting her anger on the bed with her injured leg. In the end, Pang Zhijing leaned against the bed wall and closed her eyes with a bitter smile. She was so unlucky. However, she definitely won't give up her freedom. Xiao, just you wait and see. Chapter 1076. Walking out of the room, Pang Huang turned to face Xiao. After this incident, This Highness has discovered that you are smarter than I thought. Facing the other party's undisguised praise, Xiao raised his eyebrows and smiled. Your Highness is too kind. I will return home tonight. My sister and the following matters will be left to you. Pang Huang thought for a moment. Now that he had obtained the medicine sovereign fruit, he must return as soon as possible to hand it over to the imperial physician and have them refine the medicine to treat his injuries. Your Highness, please rest assured. Xiao slightly bowed. Pang Huang did not say anything else and turned to leave with his people. Watching Pang Huang disappear into the darkness, Xiao slowly walked back to his courtyard. At this time, the subordinate following behind Xiao asked in confusion, Master, what did Prince of Nansong mean by his words just now? Xiao explained. Just now he did not really intend to send another princess over. This is not practical and cannot be carried out. He only wanted to scare the Southern Song princess, but I saw through his intentions and cooperated with him to put on a show for the Southern Song princess to see, forcing her to submit. So that's how it is. But in this subordinate's opinion, since this princess has already forgotten everything, why is she still staying? The subordinate continued to ask. Although this princess's behavior is strange, it is not without value. She is very clever, otherwise she would not have been able to escape from under their eyes several times in a row. Keeping such a person by my side may play a vital role. Xiao played with the key in his hand and smiled coldly. The days passed and a new day came. Pang Zhijing woke up and knew that the cold-blooded crown prince was no longer with the group. She felt like the monkey was king when the tiger was not at home. She looked at the silver bell chain on her ankle. If she did not know its use, it would have looked quite beautiful. She reached out and touched one of the bells, letting out a crisp and moving sound. Unfortunately, it was used to restrict her personal freedom. She rolled her eyes and called out loudly, "Servants!" As soon as the words fell, 2 servant girls ran in from outside. Princess, what's the matter? Because of her escape during this period, the maidservant was always vigilant. Pang Zhijing found that the 2 servant girls in front of her were looking at her very nervously. It seemed that her performance during this period of time had been deeply ingrained in their hearts. If she wanted to escape, she had to behave for a period of time to lower their guard. It's nothing. I'm hungry. Let's get something to eat, Pang Zhijing said with a smile. The 2 maidservants looked at each other and felt that as long as the princess did not cause trouble, anything would be fine. After finishing her meal under the watchful eyes of the 2 servant girls, Pang Zhijing rubbed her round belly. Then, she stretched out her legs and said calmly, "Find me a few good-looking hairpins. I'm a princess, and my hair is always disheveled. What do I look like?" A maidservant righteously brought up the orders from above. "Princess, please bear with it. The higher-ups said that before you arrive at the capital of Sichuan, you are not to be given any sharp weapons to prevent you from doing anything inappropriate or harming yourself." Pang Zhijing's eyes twitched. She was probably worried that she would commit suicide or use it to hurt others. This Pang Huang, he even calculated such a small matter. He was really too much. "Forget it, I won't make things difficult for you. I'll just ask for something else." Pang Zhijing had a benevolent look on her face. In the courtyard, Xiao was flipping through a book. "Your Highness, Lord Tori said that we can set off this afternoon. He sent this humble subject to ask if there are any other arrangements. The one who spoke was the Assistant Minister of Rights, Chai Xingyu, who had followed him here this time. Xiao muttered to himself. Give the order directly. We'll set off this afternoon. Yes, Chai Xingyu replied. Xiao asked casually. Did the princess act strangely today? I heard from the servants that it was quite normal. She just asked for a lot of things early in the morning, including food and toys. She also said that she wanted to learn how to sew. She said that she could only be a good wife and a good mother when she arrives at the Sichuan. When Chai Xingyu said this, his face was full of disdain. Such a barbaric girl could not compare to the gentle and virtuous women of the Sichuan. But Xiao's fingers paused at his words, and a strange expression appeared on his face. Sure enough, as this prince expected, she still won't stop. Chai Xingyu did not understand. Lord, what do you mean by this? You don't need to know too clearly. Xiao stood up and slowly said, Go to the princess courtyard. Yes. Chu Qingyan was leisurely waiting in the prince's residence's backyard. Because the weather was too hot, she did not want to go out for a stroll, so she hid in the study room filled with ice to cool off. Where's Sichuan? Ever since she came back from the poetry competition that day, she had not seen the shadow of her good friend. Young Master Hua, before Master left, she said that she might stay outside for a few days before coming back. Xining smiled as she handed over the melon with a toothpick inserted into it to her master. It was obvious that this person took Lin Darren out to take refuge. Chu Qingyan opened her eyes and gritted her teeth. Who was the one who had assured her that she could be at ease? She was going to chop her up. Jasper, send someone to tell her not to come back if she has the guts. Jasper obeyed. The person who was biting a chicken leg in the restaurant suddenly choked. Lin Fingyi saw this and immediately reached out to touch her back, forcing her to spit out the meat. It's finally out, I almost choked to death. Hua Xishuan suddenly gulped down a mouthful of water, feeling like she had just survived a disaster. Lin Fingyi's lips rose into a smile. What did you do this time? Am I a troublemaker in your eyes? She glared at him in dissatisfaction. I didn't say that. Lin Fingyi spread his hands. But when do you plan on returning to the King of England's residence? I also want to. It's been so hot outside these past few days. Qingyan's place is more comfortable. After she sighed, her expression became conflicted. But I don't know if the storm has passed. I don't want to be chased and beaten by her as soon as I go back. I can't beat her in a fight. Lin Fingyi looked at her, as if she was reaping what she had sown. Xiao Su has his reasons for doing things. Don't go against him in the future, especially when it's about Miss Chu. Hua Xishuan hugged her head and whined. Don't say any more, I know I'm wrong. I won't drink with Qingyan in the future. Even if she wants to drink, I'll hold her back. Lin Fingyi laughed. I'm going back to the prince's residence today. Do you want to come along? Anyway, you can hide for a while, but you can't hide forever. Hua Xishuan scratched her head. Actually, she wasn't afraid of her good friend, but the iceberg lord behind her good friend. She held Lin Fingyi's hand and said pitifully, If the King of England wants to settle accounts with me, you have to stand out and help me. Let's go. Lin Fingyi pulled her up. Regarding this matter, he wasn't worried about Xiao Su at all. On the contrary, he heard that Xiao Su was in good spirits these past few days, and he was more humane than before. It must have something to do with Chu Qingyan's drinking incident. But he didn't intend to tell Hua Xishuan. This matter was to teach her a lesson, so that she wouldn't get into trouble next time. This was the Lin family's motto. Use others to achieve your goal, but don't let your wife blame you, killing two birds with one stone. Hua Xishuan thought that she was a cunning fox, but she didn't know that there was always a taller mountain. And a fox was more cunning than a fox. Chapter 1077. Chu Qingyan felt very embarrassed after coming back to her senses after being intimate with Big Ice Cube for 2 days. She didn't dare to look at him directly for a few days. It just so happened that Xiao Su was busy setting up defenses both inside and outside the city, so he didn't have a chance to catch her and properly interrogate her. He thought that if he let her stay alone for 2 days, with her temperament, She would quickly forget about this matter. Today Lin Fingyi walked into Xiao Su's study. Xiao Su looked up when he heard footsteps. "You're finally willing to show yourself?" Lin Fingyi found a chair and sat down when he heard his good friend's teasing. "I think it's time to come back and see how satisfied you are." Xiao Su choked and coughed lightly. He didn't say anything. Lin Fingyi was amused. "It seems like this coincidentally happened in your sleeves. This girl is always worried that you'll find her for revenge. It seems like you're going to give her a red packet." Xiao Su had already regained his composure. He glanced at him and said, "Don't talk nonsense and ruin Ian's reputation." Lin Fingyi was shocked. "Are you serious? You can actually hold it in?" Xiao Su said indifferently, "You talk too much." Lin Fingyi retracted his shocked expression and shrugged. "All right, I won't ask. However, I have to remind you that since you've already decided, you should get married as soon as possible to avoid unnecessary trouble." Xiao Su was silent for a moment. He felt that his good friend's words were not without reason. Lin Fingyi knew that his good friend was a smart person and didn't need him to worry too much. "Oh right, I heard that you've already started setting up defenses?" Lin Fingyi's expression became much more serious when they started talking about business. Xiao Su nodded. "The Southern Heavenly Envoy Group should arrive in half a month. I heard that the Tianji unit that was originally in charge of the city's defenses is made up of the sons of the Imperial Court officials. They're all a bunch of troublemakers and have caused you a lot of trouble recently. Are you confident that you can deal with them?" Lin Fingyi asked. Xiao Su's expression was indifferent. "Since they're wearing the military uniform and are in my hands, they have to follow my rules. If they disobey, they can only be dealt with according to military law." Lin Fingyi thought for a moment. "I heard that the Tianji unit took in many ignorant and incompetent sons of officials. However, because of the power behind them, His Majesty could only turn a blind eye to them. Now that His Majesty has handed the Tianji unit to you, I feel that His Majesty's intentions..." Xiao Su put down the letter in his hand, his eyes deep and unfathomable. "There's nothing to think about. As long as the Southern Heavenly Envoys leave, this heavy responsibility will be lifted." Lin Fingyi glanced at him. His eyes were lowered and his expression was indifferent. No one could see any emotions in his eyes. Lin Fingyi sighed softly in his heart. In reality, he knew why the emperor had done this. Firstly, the people in the Tianji battalion were not to be trifled with. Xiao Su was ruthless and could not stand their laziness. He would definitely punish them. At that time, he would offend most of the officials in the court. Secondly, these disciples would bear a grudge against him and would not stand on his side in the future. His Majesty was killing two birds with one stone. If he could deal with the Tianji unit, they would be reborn and become an important barrier in the capital. If he couldn't, he would be able to plant prejudice against his good friend in their hearts. Lin Fingyi couldn't help but wonder how much fear a father had to go to this extent for his son. Even an outsider like him could see the trick. He didn't believe that his good friend couldn't. However, his good friend chose to ignore it. Because he didn't covet that high position, all of this didn't matter to him. However, Lin Fingyi didn't understand. Even he could see his good friend's attitude. Why wouldn't His Majesty let go of a son who gave unconditionally for the country and the people and didn't covet riches and power? Could it be that the higher a person was, the more cautious they would be and the less they would trust others? He wondered if there would be a day when it would backfire. Would His Majesty suddenly wake up and regret it? However, he didn't wish for such a moment to come. It would mean that mountains and rivers would be overturned and rivers of blood would flow. "You came here today for this matter?" Xiao Su was silent for a moment. Seeing that he was in a daze, he took the initiative to speak. Lin Fingyi came back to his senses and remembered the important matter. "There's one more thing. It hasn't rained in a long time. A few cities in the north are already showing signs of drought. If it goes further north, it will be even more serious. If it still hasn't rained by the middle of the month, it will lead to a disaster. I heard that your mother has told His Majesty that she plans to go to the National Temple and pray for rain for a period of time." Xiao Su raised an eyebrow. "I've been busy setting up defenses these days and haven't heard of this. However, it seems that you haven't been in Jing for long. but you are quite well informed. Lin Fengyi shook his head at Xiao Su's teasing. You can still laugh now, but it won't be the same later. Xiao Su couldn't help but frown. What do you mean? Lin Fengyi didn't keep him in suspense. Your mother is praying for rain this time to set an example. Many Furens and misses have smelled the intention, and want to take this opportunity to curry favor and show their faces. They all recommend themselves, but you are busy with official business and don't worry about things that have nothing to do with you. Your little Wang Fei also doesn't pay attention to outside matters, so it's impossible for her to know these things. But you have to know that your little Wang Fei is the Empress' prospective daughter-in-law. She hasn't said anything for so many days, so I'm afraid that many people are laughing at her. Your Mu Fei will lose face and will definitely make trouble for your little Wang Fei. At that time, you have to pray for good luck. Xiao Su didn't understand the twists and turns between women. Hearing his good friend's reminder, he frowned slightly. If it wasn't a serious matter, his good friend wouldn't specially mention it. At this time, he had a hidden worry in his heart, because he knew that Muhu was dissatisfied with the little fellow from the beginning. He didn't know if Muhu would use this matter to make an example. At this time, Hualing knocked on the door and entered the study. Master, the Empress has sent someone to the Wang Fu. Xiao Su and Lin Fengyi couldn't help but look at each other. They could see the understanding in each other's eyes. In the rear courtyard, Chu Qingyan was about to grab Xiao and give her a fat beating when Jasper came in. Master, Aunt Luoyun who serves the Empress has come. Chu Qingyan was stunned and took back her hand. What did she come to the Wang Fu for? This subordinate also doesn't know. She's in the guest room right now. Jasper replied. Let's go take a look. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. Xiao had finally escaped from the tiger's mouth with great difficulty, so she immediately jumped far away. Chu Qingyan looked at her in annoyance, then brought Jasper and Xining to the guest room. Greetings to Miss Chu. When Chu Qingyan appeared, Luo Yun bowed in greeting. Chu Qingyan gave her a seat and exchanged a few words with her. She only had an impression of this Luo Yun a few times in her memory, especially 5 years ago when she was delivering a message for the Empress and didn't see the big ice cube, as well as the hurried glance at the palace banquet this time. Now that they were face to face, she could feel the ill intent coming from Luo Yun. Does Aunt Luo Yun have something important to discuss with Qingyan in the Wang Fu? She asked with a faint smile. Because it hasn't rained for many months, many cities and towns have experienced a drought. The Empress is merciful and plans to gather all the madams and misses in the capital to pray for the common people. The Empress has ordered this servant to invite Miss Chu to come with us, Luo Yun said with a fake smile. Chapter 1078. How many days will it take? At least 3 days, at most 7 or 8 days. Praying for blessings requires sincerity, so the longer the better. Chu Qingyan's eyes twitched. Do I have the right to choose? Hearing Chu Qingyan's words, Luo Yun's eyes twitched. She felt that this girl did not know how to appreciate favors. Miss Chu, allow this servant to say something unpleasant. As His Highness fiancé and the future consort of the King of England, there will be many such things in the future. Do you think that with His Highness' support, you can ignore these favors? At this point, Luo Yun added in a cold voice, if you want to sit firmly in the position of consort, you should know that at this time, it's best to make connections. Even though we're just women, we can more or less build a foundation for His Highness' future path. Moreover, this was personally organized by the Empress. As the future daughter-in-law, it wouldn't be appropriate for you not to go, right? Chu Qingyan had to admit that her words were reasonable, but her tone made people feel very uncomfortable. After sending off Luo Yun, Chu Qingyan leaned back in her chair and covered her eyes with her fingers. She felt more tired than fighting a battle. Xiao leaned against the door frame and secretly poked her head out. After seeing that there was no danger, she dared to walk in. What's wrong? Did that old woman make things difficult for you? Chu Qingyan was originally gloomy, but after hearing her teasing, she couldn't help but laugh. That Luo Yun was at most 30 or 40 years old. Being described by Xiao like this, she felt a bit wronged. Even if she wants to make things difficult for me, I don't care, Seeing her laugh, Xiao let out a sigh of relief. She smiled very infuriatingly. I like your scoundrel appearance. Right. Why did she find you? Empress Liang wants to go to the national temple to make a name for herself, and wants me to go with her. I don't know what she's planning in secret. Chu Qingyan felt a headache coming on. Xiao shrugged. When it comes to royal power, I can't do anything about it. You're on your own. Chu Qingyan glanced at her. I'm not counting on you. Let's get back to the main topic. You ran away from the battle a few days ago, and left me in the prince's mansion. Should I settle it with you? Seeing that her good friend had already rolled up her sleeves, she jumped out of her sleeves and ran out. Miser, help! Help! Seeing the figure disappear through the door, Chu Qingyan's purposeful expression broke as she laughed uncontrollably. What are you so happy about? A low voice came from outside the door. Chu Qingyan took a closer look and saw a tall and elegant figure appear by the door. Why are you here? Aren't you busy? Xiao Su walked in with a stride. I heard Hualing say that someone from the palace came, so I came to see you. Your Empress Mother wants me to go to the national temple to pray for rain for the citizens, she said concisely. If you don't want to go, I can tell Empress Mother. He sat down next to her and said in a calm voice. It seemed like Feng Yi had guessed correctly. Chu Qingyan looked at him dejectedly. This is no longer a matter of whether you are willing to step in or not. This is a matter of whether I can maintain my position as Princess Consort. Your Empress Mother is already unhappy with me, a daughter-in-law that she did not choose. This time, I did not volunteer myself, which made her even more unhappy. Today, she did not send someone here to discuss this matter with me, but to inform me directly. Even if you can help me hold them back for a while, can you hold them back forever? You might even anger her even more. AI, why is this baby's life so hard? At first, he felt that he had let the little fellow down, but when he heard her moaning, and most of her moaning, his worries were half gone. Then you've decided to go? He reached out to stroke her head as he asked. Does it even need to be said? Her lips curled and her eyes were firm. Also, I want to use this chance to see what your Empress Mother wants to do to let my father and mother go. Don't get involved in this matter. I'll take care of it myself. His fingers moved down and pinched her chubby little face. He smiled and said, That means you already have a plan? Chu Qingyan lowered her head when she heard this. No. Xiao Su froze for a moment, then laughed out loud. He pulled her into his arms and said calmly and forcefully, Just do whatever you want to do. If anything happens, I'll help you deal with the aftermath. Then what if I break the sky? She raised her head from his embrace and asked with sparkling eyes. If you break the sky, I'll help you fix it. If not, we'll just run away together. Xiao Su lowered his head to peck her nose and laughed softly. She closed her eyes and nestled in his embrace. She sighed happily. Big Ice Cube, you're so good. Xiao Su tightened his arms and his lips curved. But the two people hugging each other didn't think that the words they said today would become a prophecy in the near future. Chaoyang Palace. Luo Yin had just returned from outside the palace, when one of the palace maids that served the Empress walked over. Gugu, the Empress is looking for you. Luo Yin nodded. I'll go over right now. After entering the hall, Luo Yin saw her mistress sipping tea. She quickly walked up to her mistress. You're back. How did it go? Empress Liang asked in a calm voice. This servant has already delivered the message. That Yada didn't dare to resist and agreed. Luo Yin reported. I don't think she dares to have an opinion. Empress Liang snorted coldly. Because of her, Ben Gong has become the laughingstock of many people in the Hogong. Luo Yin knew that this time, her master's suggestion of going to the national temple had received the support of many Furens inside and outside the court. But only the King of England's Fu hadn't made a move, causing everyone to think that Empress Liang wasn't close to this daughter-in-law. Yesterday in the Imperial Garden, Consort Yu had mocked her openly and secretly, saying that it was because mother and son weren't on good terms recently. This had angered her master so much that she had smashed several priceless vases. She agreed and said, This Chu Qingyan is too insensible. She let master suffer so much injustice for no reason. When she goes to the national temple, without His Highness around, you can do whatever you want with her. Won't it be up to you? Empress Liang calmed down and raised her hand, saying, "This time, Jing Yatu and Bing Yatu will also go. Arrange for a few capable mamas to follow them and give them some advice. This time, Ben Gong wants to use this opportunity to make them stand out. In the future, they will have the capital to be promoted to the position of consort." Luo Yun said, "Yes. Right, where are the two couple now? Why haven't they entered the capital after so long?" Empress Liang finally remembered. Luo Yun hesitated. According to the reports of the servants, this Chu Laoi has a lot of problems. He said that he can't stand the bumpiness of the carriage and will feel dizzy. His body doesn't feel well. The guards don't dare to rush and can only slowly move the carriage step by step and provide him with good food and drink. Empress Liang angrily slapped the table. "Why are there so many problems? Get them into the capital as soon as possible to avoid any more problems." Yes. Luo Yun felt that this matter wasn't easy to handle, but she still forced herself to agree. Chapter 1079. In the past 2 days, the entire city was filled with rumors that Empress Liang was preparing to take the womenfolk to the national temple to pray for rain. The people were very simple people. When they heard good news, they would praise. When they heard bad news, they would complain and be angry. Now, everyone was praising Empress Liang for having a bodhisattva's heart. She was considerate of the people and was a blessing to the country. In the private room above the restaurant, a light snort sounded. "You haven't acted yet, but your future mother-in-law has earned enough reputation. This move is really good." Chu Qingyan raised her eyes. "You close the door and eat. Don't go and join in the fun." "Okay, I know you are going to the national temple tomorrow. Today, I will accompany you to eat a good meal to satisfy your cravings." Hua Xiao returned to the table with her hands behind her back. "Hey, can't you just let me have a proper meal? Don't bring up my sore spot, okay?" Chu Qingyan glared at her as she bit down on the bone in her mouth, making a cracking sound. Hua Xiao felt that the crunch was like biting her bone. She couldn't help but touch her arm. "Right, let's talk about business. Didn't you plan to introduce the continuation products to the capital?" "Although I was not in the palace these 2 days, I was not idle. I bought a shop and prepared to open it in 2 days." Hua Xiao looked like she was asking for praise and caress. If she had a tail, it would be wagging left and right. Chu Qingyan put down the cup in her hand. Her eyes were bright. "How much goods did you bring to the capital this time?" "Not much, not little. Just over 1,000 taels. But when I left Jiangnan, I arranged for another group to escort the goods to the capital. They should arrive in the capital in 10 days. Hua Xiao nodded as she spoke. Chu Qingyan clapped her hands and smiled. "Hua Xiao, I was not wrong about you. When I came to the capital this time, I found that the women in the capital are lacking in skincare. In addition, the climate is dry. Many people can't cover their faces with powder. As long as the first shot is successful, I believe that the continuation products in the capital will be rolling in money." Hua Xiao smirked. "Of course, don't you know who I am? Although I'm not gray-haired and have a beard, I've been following my father around since I was young, learning how to do business. My experience is no worse than those old guys." Before she finished speaking, a drumstick was stuffed in her mouth. Chu Qingyan smiled. "I will reward you with a big drumstick." Hua Xiao was tempted by the fragrance. She didn't say anything and ate. "So this fasting is a good opportunity." Chu Qingyan looked at her good friend eating so happily and couldn't help but smile. As she picked up her cup again, she suddenly thought of something. "I don't understand," Hua Xiao said incoherently. Chu Qingyan's eyes sparkled. "Aren't the women of the officials going to the national temple this time? Their words and actions will affect the trends of the entire capital. As long as I use this opportunity to promote our products, I won't be afraid that no one will care about you when you open. This is what they mean by, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I thought you were going to suffer, but I didn't expect to find business opportunities. It seems that you are right to go to the national temple." Hua Xiao clapped her hands and agreed with surprise. Chu Qingyan's dark clouds disappeared. She felt that the sky was much brighter. Okay, what else do you want to eat? Order as much as you can. It's my treat. It was your treat. Did you plan to trick me from the beginning? Xiao cried. Chu Qingyan smiled noncommittally. The two of them didn't eat for long before the door was pushed open. The two of them looked up at the same time and saw Xiao and Lin Fengyi walk in one after the other. You came at the right time. The dishes just came up. Chu Qingyan greeted them. The two of them had just left court when they received Hualing's report outside the palace. But they didn't expect to see two big tabby cats as soon as they walked in. Xiao and Lin Fengyi looked at each other and saw helplessness in each other's eyes. Meeting this kind of silly girl, they could only accept it. Xiao was chewing on a bone. She saw Xiao carefully picking out fish bones for Xiao. She fiercely stepped on Lin Fengyi's foot under the table. Look at him, and then look at yourself. I finally know what it means to be angered to death by comparison. Lin Fengyi was innocently stepped on. He glared daggers at Xiao. When did he become so gentle and considerate? Even if he wanted to show off his love, he shouldn't do it in public. Did he know how much trouble it would cause others? In the end, Chu Qingyan saw official Lin silently helping Xiao peel the prawns. She felt that it was rare to see such a considerate boyfriend who was both civil and military. She was sincerely happy for Xiao. Shui Ling has already found traces of your parents. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Xiao said while wiping his hands. Where? Chu Qingyan's relaxed attitude was swept away, and she asked in surprise and nervousness. Qingping town, 3 days away from the capital. Xiao replied. Xiao was puzzled. Why are they so slow? We've already been here for several days. Lin Fengyi, who was beside her, took over the conversation with a light sigh and a smile. I heard that the other party wanted to bring your parents to the capital as soon as possible. Unfortunately, they were tormented by your father to the point that they had nothing left to live for. Now they're crawling on the road like a tortoise. Chu Qingyan's heart was still in her throat, but when she heard Lin Fengyi's words, she heaved a sigh of relief. She smiled again and said, My father is very smart. How could he be bullied so easily? However, she also knew that if it weren't for her relationship with Big Ice Cube, it was hard to say what these people would do. The most important thing now was to rescue her parents from Empress Liang. Otherwise, if they were always controlled by others, it would be very disadvantageous for both Big Ice Cube and her parents. Thinking of this, Chu Qingyan was even more determined to go to the National Temple this time. That's right, that's right. How could Uncle be at a disadvantage? Those people must be very regretful that they provoked Uncle. Haha. Xiao was so happy that she kept clapping. Lin Fengyi smiled. It's about time. We should go back. Xiao nodded. Thus, the group pushed open the door and prepared to leave. At this moment, a delicate female voice sounded. Cousin, what a coincidence. You're also here to eat? The voice was somewhat familiar. Xiao turned and saw two finely dressed women standing at the door of another private room. Although he had some impression of them, he couldn't remember who they were. Seeing Xiao frown and look at them as if they were strangers, Liang Dambing anxiously said, Cousin, I'm Banger. I went to Jiangnan before. Have you forgotten? Chu Qingyan had just taken a step when she heard their voices. She couldn't help but narrow her eyes to look at them. So it's my two cousins. Long time no see. How have you been? She smiled faintly and calmly as she greeted them. Then she continued, His Highness usually doesn't have much of an impression of unimportant people. Please excuse us. Chu Qingyan's appearance and her words successfully made the Liang sisters blush. Chapter 1080. Because Xiao was near the door, he walked out first with Lin Fengyi. Chu Qingyan and Xiao were whispering behind them, so the Liang sisters did not notice them. Previously, they didn't want to come to this restaurant, but when they saw Xiao going up to this restaurant, they wanted to create a chance encounter. Thus, they asked the waiter in the restaurant, and immediately booked a private room near him. They did not expect that Chu Qingyan would also be in this private room. When they were sent back to the capital from Jiangnan, it was a great humiliation for the sisters. Now that they met again, it was really a small world. So Miss Chu is also here. I thought it was only cousin. Liang Dambing said in a strange tone. The temperature outside was a bit high, so Chu Qingyan was not in the mood to reminisce. She did not want to have anything to do with them, so she pursed her lips. I'm tired of the food in the residence, so I came out for a walk. You must not have finished eating, right? Then we won't disturb you. We'll leave first. Liang Danjing observed and realized that Xiao had not said a single word from the beginning to the end. He had allowed Chu Qingyan to do all the talking. Liang Danjing felt a little displeased. They had endured the heat just to see him, but he still did not care about them. She felt a sense of malice rise in her heart as she targeted Chu Qingyan. Miss Chu is really impatient. The sun is so hot outside. Why don't you sit for a while and avoid the sun? Liang Danjing said with a smile. Her words were appropriate and considerate. Normal people would not have the heart to refuse. Hua Xiao looked at her good friend, then looked at the two people. She immediately understood the relationship between them. She crossed her arms and leaned to one side to watch the show. These two were really bold. They dared to play tricks in front of Qingyan. She was happy to watch this free show. Before Chu Qingyan could reply, Liang Dambing could not help but speak up. Lady Chu, you have just arrived in the capital city not long ago. I'm sure you are not familiar with the culture here. We have grown up here since we were young, and we can give you some pointers to prevent you from making a fool of yourself again. Chu Qingyan frowned. A big joke. That's right, Liang Dambing said in a strange tone. It's this fast. As my cousin's fiancée in name and Aunt Empress's future daughter-in-law, you should be a role model and respond. Unfortunately, you haven't said anything. Do you know how many people in the capital are laughing at you? They say you're afraid of suffering and don't want to be vegetarian. Not only have you implicated my cousin's reputation, but you've also embarrassed Aunt Empress. Don't you think it's time to learn the rules and know what to do and what not to do? Since we have time today, why don't we teach you? Liang Danjing was a little embarrassed by her sister's words. Although she wanted to make Chu Qingyan suffer, she didn't want to do it this way. She felt that her sister was being too impulsive. Miss Chu, please don't misunderstand. Little Bing is a straightforward person. She doesn't mean any harm. When Liang Danjing said this, she was looking at Xiao's expression. But from beginning to end, he had a cold expression. This made her heart suddenly lose confidence. Ayan, it's time to go. Xiao spoke. He didn't even look at the Liang sisters. Chu Qingyan had prepared a retort, but after hearing the Big Ice Cube's words, she ignored the two. Some people were like grasshoppers. The more you paid attention to them, the happier they would jump. Being ignored so thoroughly, the Liang sisters suddenly felt very embarrassed. Liang Dambing couldn't help but jump out. Cousin, we're still your cousins. How can you always ignore us? If Aunt knew, she would be sad. Xiao stopped in his tracks and turned around to look at the two indifferently. I'll correct you one last time. If you want to keep emphasizing this king's relationship with your Liang family, then remember that Ayan is your cousin-in-law. Otherwise, don't blame this king for turning hostile. After leaving behind these shocking words, Xiao brought Chu Qingyan downstairs without looking back. Didn't you say the roast duck here was too greasy? When we go back, have Huang Yi make you a bowl of plum soup to get rid of the greasy taste. Xiao acted like there was no one else around as he asked the person beside him. He didn't seem as cold as before. All right, I feel like I can eat another plate of lotus seed cakes. Chu Qingyan agreed with a smile. Lin Fengyi and Hua Xiuli felt that the show was about over. They tacitly turned around and left with Xiao. Only Liang Danjing and Liang Dambing were frozen in place by Xiao's cold words. Older sister, did older cousin just say that he's going to turn hostile with our Liang family for Chu Qingyan? Liang Dambing turned around to ask. Liang Danjing was shocked and a bit amused. Older cousin would actually abandon their Liang family for a woman? When she heard her younger sister's question in her shock, she forced herself to say, he won't. The Liang family is his left and right arm. He won't abandon it. But, Liang Dambing wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by Liang Danjing. There are no buts. You just need to remember this. Also, don't mention today's matter to father and mother. Then are we just going to let Chu Qingyan do whatever she wants? Older sister, I can't take this lying down. Liang Dambing was very angry. What are you afraid of? We'll see Chu Qingyan again during this fast. When the time comes, we'll be staying at the National Temple for a few days. You'll have plenty of opportunities to collect your debt. Liang Danjing smiled gently, but her smiling eyes seemed to be filled with venom, shining with a faint light. Liang Dambing suddenly understood and her heart felt a lot better. She thought about how to get justice for herself at the National Temple. When they got on the carriage, Chu Qingyan's smile turned into a faint smile. Why is it that when a man attracts bees and butterflies, the one who suffers is the woman by his side? When he heard this tone, he knew that the little fellow was angry. Xiao Su spread his hands. This kind of attracting bees and butterflies is divided into active and passive. Don't define it so easily. I don't care. Because of you, I've always suffered undeserved disasters. How are you going to make it up to me? Chu Qingyan didn't buy his explanation. She went forward and grabbed his collar, fiercely saying. Xiao Su smiled. I'll let you do whatever you want. Chu Qingyan's face turned red. She immediately let go of her hand and glared at him. Stinky guy. Xiao Su smiled. His long hand scooped her up and pulled her into his embrace. Chu Qingyan's struggle was futile. She was thrown into the arms of this beautiful man. On the boundless land, Xiao Ho had escorted the Southern Blue diplomatic group for an entire day. At this moment, everyone stopped to rest on a small mountain path. At this moment, Xiao Ho was flipping through the letter from the capital. He smiled. This Empress Liang isn't stupid. She actually thought of this move. Not only did it help her gain fame, it also helped Xiao Su win the hearts of the people. This Empress Liang can't be underestimated. Jehovah, what should we do next? Chai Xingyu asked. Let's not make a move. We'll wait and see. We'll talk about it when we return to the capital. Xiao Ho closed the letter. He didn't care about this matter at all. At this moment, a subordinate hurriedly ran over. Jehovah, the princess escaped again. Xiao Ho narrowed his eyes. Chapter 1081. In the quiet forest, there were suddenly sounds of searching and soldiers everywhere. Pang Zhijing tightly hugged the tree trunk and did not let go. Just now, she used the excuse of going to the toilet to sneak away under the watchful eyes of the maidservants, and then climbed up the nearest tree, because she subconsciously believed that the most dangerous place was the safest place. Looking at the soldiers walking back and forth below, Pang Zhijing was happy and carefree. But calculating the time, Xiao Ho should have received the news of her escape. This Xiao Ho was simply too hateful. Yesterday, she had managed to cheat the embroidery needle from the maidservants with great difficulty, but before she could even try to open the lock, he found out and confiscated it. He also told the maidservants not to provide her with anything except food, drink, and clothing. Thinking back to that time when he wanted to feed her to the wolf dogs, she was afraid and hated him. Wasn't he just a little good-looking? His heart was really black. Once she left this time, she would definitely stab him with a small person and step on him a few times. But that would have to wait until she escaped to heaven. She glanced at the exquisite lock on her feet, and her face darkened. She was gambling that the compass was actually Pang Huang's way of scaring her. She thought of a way to wrap the bell on her foot with a cloth so that the sound would not leak out. As long as the compass was useless, she would be able to escape safely after a few more days. At this time, she heard a group of people walking in her direction. Lord, the princess disappeared around here. It was the voice of the maidservant who served her. The princess's foot is injured, so she can't run far. You guys slowly expand your search area from here. Xiao Ho swept his eyes over the place and ordered everyone. Yes. Soon, she heard the sound of everyone spreading out to search. Pang Zhijing held her breath and did not dare to breathe out because she knew that in ancient times, many experts could find a hiding place through a person's breathing. But she was suffocating to death. Xiao Ho stood under a tree not far away and calmly looked at the forest. The guards who left came back to report. Lord, we didn't find the princess. Princess, We also didn't find her. At this moment, Chai Xingyu suggested, Lord, you can try the compass left behind by the Prince of Nansong. When Pang Zhijing heard this, she couldn't help but tense up. Why was this person so talkative? Pang Huang's eyes lit up, and he said to Chai Xingyu with a troubled expression, that compass was only used by the Prince of Nansong to scare the princess. It's useless. Chai Xingyu had no other choice. Pang Zhijing breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. It seemed that she had made the right bet. The compass was just a bluff from Pang Huang. She was so proud that she forgot to cover her breathing. Xiao glanced at the tree where Pang Zhijing was hiding, and a flash of understanding appeared in his eyes. But Pang Zhijing's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. This king already knows the princess's whereabouts. With that, everyone's attention was drawn to Xiao, including Pang Zhijing. However, she was more convinced that Xiao was tricking her. And at this moment, Xiao's gaze accurately landed on the tree in front of him. Princess, how long do you plan to hide? Pang Zhijing was shocked and looked up, only to meet his confident gaze. Those guards followed Xiao's instructions, and immediately surrounded the tree. Now she was surrounded on all sides. She looked at Xiao, who had walked to the tree, and said angrily, Can't you just pretend that you don't see me? This king can't do that. Xiao spread his hands. Pang Zhijing snorted and didn't intend to pay attention to him. Xiao raised his hand and someone planned to climb up and bring her down. This action caused Pang Zhijing to scream, Don't come over. Xiao smiled gently. Does the princess plan to spend the night up there? I want to, she stubbornly said. Xiao said considerately, Then we'll wait until the princess is ready to come down. However, I heard that in this forest, although there aren't many wild beasts, there are quite a few reptiles. The princess' courage to stay here alone is commendable. After saying that, he turned to leave with his subordinates. Reptiles? Her first thought was the poisonous snake she saw a few days ago, and she couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over her body. Wait. Xiao turned to look at her without any surprise. Does the princess have any other orders? Pang Zhijing put on a strong front and said, Come here. These words surprised him a little, but he still walked over and stood under the tree. Just as he was about to look up, a black shadow pounced at him. He wanted to dodge, but this would clearly expose the fact that he knew martial arts in front of others. In this moment of distraction, he landed on the ground. He looked coldly at the person hanging on his body. The princess is so skilled. Pang Zhijing wanted to give herself full marks for her success, but when she came into contact with him, she felt that this person was emitting a cold aura. However, when she looked up to see what was going on, he still had a gentle smile on his face. I have no choice. My foot is injured, and those guards are clumsy. I'm afraid the wound will worsen, so I have to trouble you, Your Highness. After all, first-time strangers, second-time friends. In fact, it was because she didn't like to be touched by other men. If she had to choose one, she would rather choose the good-looking Xiao. Plus, when she fell, he caught her once. In terms of safety, she trusted him more. Xiao's eyes fell on her foot. It seemed to be more swollen than before, but this was not his concern. In that case, the princess can go down. Xiao was still good-tempered. Pang Zhijing thought this person looked easy to bully, but if she really thought so, she wouldn't know when she would be betrayed. She wouldn't admit that she felt the threat in his eyes, so she went down obediently. But before she landed, she stomped on his foot hard. After she succeeded, she jumped to a safe distance with one foot, and said to him fiercely, This is your punishment. After that, she quickly fled the scene with the help of her maid. Xiao looked at the gray footprint on his shoe, and the corner of his eyes twitched. Lord, are you okay? Chai Xingyu didn't dare to look at him, and asked in a low voice. I'm fine. Xiao turned and left. Chai Xingyu touched his nose, and felt that Lord was really a little scary when he was so calm. At this moment, Pang Zhijing was sitting by the fire. When she saw Xiao coming from afar, she snorted and played with the firewood in her hand as if she didn't see him. The flames danced in her eyes, as if there were images of the past floating in her mind. She couldn't help but hug her knees. She really wanted to go home. The person who was supposed to pass by suddenly stood in front of her. Pang Zhijing slowly raised her head, and the confusion in her eyes faded. She said vigilantly, "What do you want to do? Do you want to take revenge? Let me tell you, a gentleman won't touch a girl." Xiao looked down at her. "I'll give you 3 chances." "What?" She was a little surprised. "If you can escape from my hands, I'll set you free." Chapter 1082. Red rain is falling from the sky. Snow in June? Is the sun rising from the west? Pang Zhijing blinked as she looked at Xiao in disbelief. "Are you playing with me?" "I'll only say it once." Xiao calmly looked at her. All right, I promise you." Pang Zhijing excitedly jumped up, forgetting that her foot was injured. With a step, she fell back with a scream. Luckily, the maid behind her quickly caught her. When Xiao left, he left behind a message. "The time limit is before we enter the capital, but this king will remind the princess that there is no need to hide in the tree." Pang Zhijing's eyes were filled with tears as she looked at his elegant figure. She felt that this person was not that annoying, he was really pleasing to the eye. But she later found that this person was not only annoying, he was also a wicked and cunning devil. After leaving Pang Zhijing's fire, Chai Xingyu, who had been following behind Xiao, finally could not help asking, "Lord, why did you give the princess a chance? That princess looks like a lamp that is not easy to deal with. Aren't we just asking for trouble like this?" Xiao turned around and coldly looked at his subordinate. "Are you questioning this king's decision?" This subordinate does not dare. Chai Xingyu immediately bowed his head in apology. When the robe in front of him disappeared from his sight, Chai Xingyu finally dared to raise his head. He pressed a hand to his chest as he slightly panted with a lingering fear. It was close to evening, but the sky was still bright, and the air was still heavy. Xiao was nestled in Chu Qingyan's room, enjoying the cold wind inside. She then watched her instruct Jasper and Xining to tidy up their clothes. "Rest for a bit. I saw you so busy when I came back." Xiao could not help saying. Chu Qingyan ignored her. "We're setting off tomorrow. If I don't prepare ahead of time, I'll be flustered tomorrow." Xiao propped up her chin and was bored to death. She began to complain. "I say, this mother-in-law of yours is too much. She can just go and pray. Why does she have to drag a bunch of people with her? If you have the ability, why don't you ask her in front of her?" Chu Qingyan was almost done with her instructions. She walked back to the table and sat down. She poured herself a glass of water. "It's not like you don't know that I have the heart but not the guts." Yelling at a palace master, "Am I tired of living?" Xiaoli's face immediately drooped. "Also, aren't I worried about you? He'll be gone for so many days, and he'll have to be a vegetarian. He'll have to face so many jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards. Just thinking about it makes me shiver. Why are you thinking so much?" Chu Qingyan glanced at her. "We'll have to face it tomorrow anyway." Yes. I'm just a eunuch who's more worried than the emperor." Xiao shrugged his shoulders in surrender. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. "I appreciate your kindness. I know you treat me the best." Xiaoli snorted and then continued. "That's right, I forgot to ask. Who's going this time?" "The Empress, Consort, you, those concubines, and the court officials' womenfolk. Oh, also Xiao Ran is in charge of security this time." She heard this from the big ice cube. When she heard Xiao Ran's name, a strange expression appeared on Xiaoli's face. "Xiao Ran is also going. And I heard the big ice cube say that Xiao Ran took the initiative to ask for the imperial edict to be in charge. I didn't expect him to be so ambitious." Chu Qingyan praised. Xiaoli shook her head. "I don't think so." "What? It seems like you have some opinions about Xiao Ran." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but be curious. Xiaoli pursed her lips. "I don't have any opinions about him. Whether he's good or bad has nothing to do with me. But I did notice something. Do you remember the serious matter I wanted to talk to you about in the carriage? It's related to him." When the carriage was mentioned, Xiaoli couldn't help but blush. She still remembered what Qingyan said to her in the carriage. It was two. Chu Qingyan didn't notice the change in her expression and became even more curious. What is it? I don't know if you noticed, but the way Xiao Ran looks at you is very strange. It doesn't seem like the way a friend would look at you. Moreover, he seems to care a lot about you. As a bystander, I feel that it's a bit strange. Xiao dismissed the strange thoughts in her mind and said seriously. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she didn't think it was strange. Instead, she thought that Xiaoli was thinking too much. She smiled and said, Xiao Ran and I are friends. We met 5 years ago. I'm also his future sister-in-law, so it's normal for him to be close to me. And with their noble status, it's usually hard for them to make true friends. I'm his only friend, so I don't think it's strange. No, Qingyan, don't think it's so simple. In any case, I believe in my eyes and intuition. Xiaoli shook her head, not agreeing with her words. Chu Qingyan was puzzled. Forget it. Just take it that I'm thinking too much. Right now you should worry about your fasting. You can't eat meat for several days and can't come back. The heavens have pity on you. All right, I won't disturb you and your highness. When Xiaoli saw the person walking in, she stood up and winked at Chu Qingyan. Then, without waiting for her to respond, she walked out. Chu Qingyan turned to call out to her to explain, but she saw Xiao Su slowly walking over. What are you talking about? Xiao Su walked in front of her. He looked at the prepared bundle on the table and asked with a puzzled expression. She smiled and shook her head. I was just playing with Xiaoli. How did you have time to come over? I came to see you. He rubbed her head and smiled. When Jasper and Xining saw this, they immediately covered their mouths and snickered and quickly left the room. Chu Qingyan heard the servant girls teasing and glared at him with a slightly red face. In a certain residence in the capital, young palace master, who do you plan to send to the national temple tomorrow? Xuanqi Zimo asked the person sitting at the table. Higashio Motetsu was dressed in a purple brocade robe and was lazily leaning against the main seat. When he heard this, he slowly opened his eyes, revealing a pair of beautiful phoenix eyes. Father's orders? Xuanqi Zimo replied, yes. The palace master said that His Highness Fourth Highness will be in charge of the security arrangements for the national temple this time. He wants you to send a few experts to protect His Highness Fourth Highness. Father really cares about this, Xiao Ran. Higashio Motetsu's expression was indifferent, and no one could tell what he was thinking. Xuanqi Zimo didn't dare to say anything and only lowered his head. Higashio Motetsu suddenly asked, is Qingyan going this time as well? Yes. I heard that Empress Liang personally asked her to go. Xuanqi Zimo didn't dare to delay and immediately replied. With that, Higashio Motetsu fell silent. Just when Xuanqi Zimo thought that his master wouldn't say anything else, he suddenly heard him say, this time, this young master will go personally. Xuanqi Zimo was stunned, but he didn't dare to ask any more questions and immediately agreed. When Higashio Motetsu was the only one left in the room, he fell into deep thought. Finally, he smiled lightly, but it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. Qingyan, I've been hiding from you for so long. It's time to show yourself. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.